across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Petrie here with you on Talk until 1 o'clock, and coming up at midnight it is your chance to talk back. So that's what I want you to do about Andy Burnham. Now look, he's not Prime Minister yet, but he is Prime Minister, right? He's Prime Minister in waiting. And he could be our Prime Minister by the 20th of July. So that is going to be who is going to be running this country. I'd love to hear from you if you're in Manchester, to hear more about Andy Burnham and what he achieved up north, the King of the North. But also, are you optimistic about what you've heard about him so far, or do you not believe a word? We always hear Prime Ministers in waiting, whether they just be on the opposition benches or wherever they are, making lots of promises, using lots of words, but it's the delivery, isn't it? Not the delivery of the words, but the delivery of what they say they're going to do. Do you believe that Andy Burnham can do some of the things that he was talking about this morning? I thought it was a very good speech, and I thought that he had to be careful, but he couldn't really come up with policy decisions or money or anything like that because he's not Prime Minister yet. But some of the things he was saying is that a massive build of council houses, that 1.5 million people were waiting for council homes, and 1.5 million council homes have gone off the books. And I've always said that the only truly affordable home for many people is social housing. All this nonsense from Keir Starmer about we're going to build all these affordable homes, they're not affordable, right? We know that. They're not really affordable, not to everybody anyway. So council house building is great, terrific. Didn't mention how that's going to be paid for. I think that's going to hurt somebody, and probably people like me a lot, and also anybody who lives in the southeast, because he wants to do this land value tax, which will mean that we have to pay more because our homes are worth more, not if we're earning more, just because the properties are on land, because it's in London, that's worth more. So there will be some unfairness, I think. But perhaps many of you who live outside of London think that you've been living with this unfairness for decades, and it is time to shift the money out of the south and into the north. Not just play at it, but literally just shift it. Make people like me pay more so you don't have to pay as much. And maybe you think that's the way it should go. Also, he mentioned to buy British. Now, he has achieved this in Manchester, but he's saying to buy British, even if it's more expensive. So it could cost us more, but they will be looking at the social contracts that are handed out. In other words, they would have to fulfil certain social obligations. I would imagine, like giving jobs to young people or training programs to young people. Things like that would come hand in hand with a Buy British policy. And the other thing that I was most interested in was him saying no whip, that MPs will be allowed to vote according to their conscience. And again, I think that the whip is a terrible idea. I don't think that MPs should be told how to vote on a certain issue. I think that we employ them to vote according to what we would want them to do in our areas. So if he does get rid of the whip, I can't see that happening. But if he does do that, that would be an interesting change in the way the governments are run. So there's quite a lot to talk about. And number 10 in the north, all of those things. Do you believe any of this? Do you think that he can deliver on any of this? He wants 10 years. Are you prepared to give him that time to get these things done? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at national rate, but we do call you back. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222. If you didn't hear much of his speech this morning, we will have clips of it going on later on as well. So we're not going to leave anybody behind with that. Right, coming up for the rest of the programme, the fabulous Vincent Moss will be joining us to go through the papers. Beverly Lyons is going to join us to talk about Dame Penelope Keith, who died today at the age of 86. She was a national treasure, wasn't she? I absolutely loved The Manor Born and, of course, The Good Life as well. We're going to be talking about Russia and Ukraine because Putin has now admitted that Ukraine is putting pressure on Russia with its drone strikes on fuel depots, etc. So will that make any difference? And the big question is how he will respond if Crimea is cut off. The Ukrainians are doing an incredible job at reducing anything getting into the annexed Crimea. So we're going to be talking about that as well. Could we be closer to peace in the region because of this 40 days that Ukraine has promised in its bombing and drone bombing of inside of Russia? But before all of that, this morning Andy Burnham made his first major policy speech since launching his bid to become Prime Minister. He used his first major address since returning to Westminster to set out his future plans. Burnham said he would take power out of the centre with an expansion of the PM's office to Manchester in what he called Number 10 North. The newly appointed Makerfield MP is expected to succeed Keir Starmer next month. Joining me now to discuss this further is David Wooding, former newspaper editor and political commentator. Good to see you, David. Thank you.
Good evening, Petrie.
Good to see you. Thank you for joining me. First of all, what did you make of his speech this morning?
Well, it was pretty broad brush to begin with. I mean, the main things he spoke about were decentralisation, putting a lot of power into the north, and this Number 10 office in Manchester. That went down really well, but it would do because he was making the speech in Manchester with all his fans from when he was mayor of Manchester. So undoubtedly that was popular. Be interesting to know what people in the south think. There's 55% of the English population is in the south. So maybe that will be popular with some people, not so popular with others.
I'm just wondering how it can work practically. How that works, because there's some reports that he's not planning to live at Number 10, that he's planning to live in Manchester. That can't happen, surely.
Well, it's going to be very difficult. I mean, there are idealistic dreams. I mean, I'm from the north of England, and I remember, my father saying, why is Wembley Stadium in London? It should be up in the north, and things like that. So these sort of policies do go down well with Northerners. And as somebody who's lived half his life in the south, I can see both sides of that argument. But at the end of the day, is it practical to have the Prime Minister, all the Whitehall machinery in London? The only other option is to do what they have in other countries like Australia and Brazil, where the main town, Brasilia, for instance, a purpose-built capital in the centre of the country. But again, at the end of the day, you have to administer the country from somewhere. The other issue, of course, is devolution. I mean, devolution, has it worked in Scotland and Wales? Scotland is in mountains of debt. Wales is poorer than it was. The British people, or the English people, have never actually voted for English devolution. Do you remember John Prescott, when he was Deputy Prime Minister in the Blair years, held referendums on whether to have regional assemblies, and they were all kicked out by the electorate. They don't want it. They see it as another layer of costly civil service administration, more politicians, more mistakes, more money. That's what people think. Perhaps an English Parliament might have been more popular. Remember that, where after the devolution, when Scotland and Wales got all those powers and were voting down laws which affected England. So yes, it will go down well in some parts to devolve, but I see it as more civil servants, more politicians, more layers, more money. That's the danger of it.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that's what it sounded like to me, David, when he was saying that with his housing dreams, with the council house growth that he wants to see, that he would need more staff and more people in the devolved areas in order to do that. And we have seen this before with the Labour government, where the state grows and grows and grows and grows and grows in terms of the people that they employ, which is a great trick to get the unemployment rate down, but it also increases the burden of costs onto taxpayers.
Absolutely. And already, Petrie, the north of England has more people working in the public sector than the private sector, because it's just public service heavy up there, and so all this is going to do is add to that. Yeah, and the other point you make about, I know he's got a home in his constituency. Is he really going to spend his time living up there? Once he gets down here, and his chief of staff, James Pennell, who lives in London, his major civil servants, they're not all going to want to move up to Manchester. And why Manchester? Here's another question. What do the people of Leeds think, and Birmingham and Liverpool, great major cities in their own rights? Do they think that, will they feel jealous that Manchester's being hailed as the official second city?
Yeah, and like you said, hailed by no one but Andy Burnham as well.
Who was the mayor of that city, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that is an interesting point, isn't it? And I was talking to Peter Cardwell just at the end of his show there and saying, well, we tried a form of devolution with all the NHS trusts, didn't we? And said, right, you've got your own budget, you spend that. And what we've seen, of course, is an absolute chaos of pricing and costs. You know, one NHS will pay 2p for a syringe, another will pay 20p. So it's kind of like that you lose that collective bargaining to begin with. And a lot of decisions will still have to come from central government anyway.
Yeah, and what does this do? The other unanswered questions, Petrie, were defence. We can't devolve defence. We can't devolve foreign affairs or energy, immigration, the NHS itself. You know, I know that's sort of devolved a little bit, but all these things, taxes, these have all got to be done centrally, and you can't sort of do that sitting in an office in Manchester. Is he going to devolve tax? Are we going to find if you live in London, you pay more tax than if you live in West Yorkshire? I don't know. Well,
I think that would be Andy Burnham's dream, from what I hear about his land value tax. I mean, that seems to be by accident of where you live, and not by how much you earn, not by how much you're raking in, but by the land that your property is on, that you could be paying an extra £1,000 a year, capped at the moment, I believe, to that sort of level from what we've been hearing, so that people in the north, because the land is cheaper up there, don't have to pay anything. And the policies like that are not going to go down well.
No, absolutely. I do wonder whether Andy Burnham is a little bit overawed with his own success, or his own perceived success in Manchester. We keep hearing this phrase Manchesterism now, not Burnhamism, and thinks that he can transfer that to running the country. I mean, Boris Johnson was mayor of London, and he came to be prime minister, and that didn't work out too well. Yeah. So does he think that because he was a success in Manchester, that if he does the same things for the country, it will work? I'm not sure that's going to happen as much. And you know, he's not running a bus network or regeneration in the city centre. It's something far more complicated than that.
I mean, when you talk about defence, he was also talking about buying British. And look, many of us will think that that's a good idea. The trouble is that often buying British makes things much more expensive. But that doesn't seem to matter. That seems to be, look, we need to buy British, and to have the contracts that are given out pass a social test. I would imagine that would be employing young people, or making sure their taxes are paid in the UK and not overseas, etc., etc. On the whole, do you think it's worth paying more, not that we can afford it, if it stays within British shores, or would that be popular?
Well, I think that's a personal choice, really. I like to buy British goods, and I like to support local shops who are independent retailers, to help their businesses. I think that's a thing that a lot of us do privately, and we decide. But some people can't afford to shop British, buy British only, and you can't blame them for buying cheap products. If the government is going to say we're going to buy British when we have procurement contracts, then yes, that would help to induce growth and protect jobs in our own countries. That's a different issue. But I think at the end of the day, money is tight for the state as well as it is for ourselves. And he's going to have to decide whether he wants to fork out lots of money for those syringes in the NHS you were talking to Peter about before, to get British ones, or whether it's better in the long run for the NHS to get cheaper syringes from abroad, if that means he can carry out more operations and reduce those waiting lists, which at the end of the day is what our taxpayers and voters want.
Yeah, it's going to be a juggle for him, isn't it? Because being mayor, he sort of got all the nice jobs to do, really, and there's a lot of dirty work to be done in Westminster. The other thing that I thought was interesting that he said, David, was the whip. You know, he doesn't believe that MPs should be whipped into voting a certain way on an issue. Now, I completely actually agree with that, but it is a very useful tool, isn't it? Particularly since he adopts a huge majority.
Well, Keir Starmer did use the whip, and look what happened there. He failed to win his MPs to back the welfare cuts. As a result, it was a humiliating U-turn. And there's been several U-turns where his backbenchers have told him they will rebel. So what is Andy Burnham saying? If he will not ask them to obey the whip, so he won't know which way. If there's no whip system, he's not going to know which way the voting is going to go. So that's going to make management of his political agenda very difficult.
Very difficult.
I suspect what he means, and it was all a very nice, friendly, warm, look, I'm here, I'm a great guy type of speech. A little bit dreamy as well in parts, you know, it felt like one of the John Lennon pop songs to me. You know, imagine a country where we have growth.
It was a bit, yeah.
And there's hope in everyone's heart. There was all these sort of phrases there. It was all very, very dreamy and misty-eyed. But if we imagine MPs be thinking, if we didn't have the whips, it would be just wonderful. Nobody would be bullying us to vote against our principles. But then, of course, how would he get anything through Parliament? So I think what he probably means is he's not going to have any nasty bullying by the whips, but they will be using arm-twisting methods in different ways.
Yeah.
I can't believe he will cancel the whips.
I just can't see that he would do that.
I remember when they tried to ban the lobby system. For your viewers and listeners who don't know what that is where political journalists meet with the head of comms in Downing Street twice a day, once in Number 10 and once in the House of Commons in the afternoon, and they fire questions at him and find out what's going on in the government's agenda. Well, there was a stage where they were talking about scrapping the lobby system, which meant we couldn't have this twice daily meeting to find out what's going on in government. And it caused such mayhem because journalists were getting their stories from other sources, and it was much easier for them to be able to quash the stories that were not true or to give guidance and steers by meeting us every day. So
they try these new things just for the sake of it, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing, of course, is that Andy Burnham made clear, because he's not Prime Minister yet, that he wasn't going to be giving out any ideas of who would be in his cabinet. He said, don't believe the rumours. Now, of course, the rumours are around Ed Miliband becoming Chancellor, which everybody and their goat seems to think is a bad idea. But it will be telling, won't it, which direction he's really going to take the country when we see the people he places around him. What do you think he's like? He's got to mix it up, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's the big question everybody wants to know. I'm not sure whether he's even settled on what he wants now. Ed Miliband is really pushing hard for this job, and I think there's probably a 50% chance that he could get it. The danger, the good side of Ed Miliband is that he worked in the Treasury for many years. He was there with Ed Balls, who's now a TV presenter like you, and he's more popular than when he was in politics too. And they worked as Gordon Brown's two special advisors, and they are steeped in the economy and the fiscal rules and how the Treasury works. So it would be. He would be useful in that sense, in that he knows the Treasury orthodoxy and he would know how to outfox the officials when the need arises. But on the other hand, he's also an eco-zealot. He's to the left, and economists believe that he would drive the country to the wall because he would spook the markets effectively.
Well, because it would be a big. We know that there would, with him and Burnham.
Yes.
That would be the issue for me, is that the pair of them together are very socialist in their beliefs and very much into taxing people in order to spend that money. So it would feel to me like he would need more balance, actually, than Ed Miliband would provide him.
Now, one name that's been floating around, which I like, is Pat McFadden, the Work and Pension Secretary. Now, he was in the Blair cabinet, and he is a very, very centre ground, serious, intelligent, and an experienced politician. He's also from the sensible centre, and he knows that he has to cut benefits. He came in after Liz Kendall was moved out of the DWP because after the rebellion, effectively, which was not entirely her fault, and he was put in there. And he's got a bit of an iron grip on that department now, and he's working on trying to find ways of cutting the welfare bill again. So I think he would be very good. The other mention is Wes Streeting.
He's been promised something juicy, hasn't he?
Big. I think he might end up in the Foreign Office. Right. But the reason I think he might not get the Treasury is because Andy Burnham might feel he can't trust him not to resign or not to do what he wants, because the Treasury is really like a very independent role in many ways. So he might find that too much of a risk. The other one, of course, is Shabana Mahmood. It might please some of the left to move her out of the Home Office, where she's dealing with quite some severe policies on migration, and stick her into the Treasury, where if she used a hard-headed, robust style in the Treasury, she would be able to stop all the demands for more money from all the different departments. So that might be a move.
But also, she doesn't mind being unpopular in that role.
No.
So I'd probably leave her. If I
talking about being unpopular, Andy Burnham won't like being unpopular. He has been very, very popular in Manchester, still is. But I think once he's been in number 10 or number 10 in Manchester, wherever he has it, for a short while, he'll start to see what it's like being in Prime Minister. And his
the front pages are already lined up, aren't they, David? They're already lined up. We build them up and knock them down. And he hasn't got very long to prove it. He wants 10 years. He's got about 10 weeks, in my view.
Well, as I said in my column in The Sun this morning, I did a column about him, and I was likening him to a football star, because he played football. That's when he and James Pennell, his chief of staff, became friends, playing in the Labour football team. And he was a goal hanger. He used to hang around the goal, let everybody else do the work, and then he'd stick it in the back of the net and claim all the glory, which is a slight analogy for his political career. But he is like a football manager in that he's coming in to take over a struggling club, and there isn't much time for him to get results.
No.
The owners, i.e. the voters, will not hang around long if he doesn't turn this one round.
Oh, no. We've got
Manchester, where Manchester United have been going through that over the last few years, sacking managers. He'll understand that.
Yeah, he really will. He hasn't got a long honeymoon period. He might think he has. David, it's always such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. David Wooding there, former newspaper editor and political commentator. So, are you optimistic about Andy Burnham? What about devolution? Do you support that? Buying British? Do you support that? Give me a call. Quick break, back in a sec.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you. And coming up at midnight, Andy Burnham. What do we think? So, I mean, look, he's not even Prime Minister yet. But he's come up with some big ideas, and at least it seems he has some. I mean, I think that was the problem with Keir Starmer, is we never really knew what he was about, what he really wanted, what he really thought about, did we? We just kind of like, bleh. And actually, I managed to listen to Andy Burnham without throwing anything at the television today, which is extraordinary, because if it's Keir Starmer, whose delivery is just so appalling, I mean, I'm sorry, I have met the guy. But yeah, briefly, and that was enough. But I just couldn't listen to him, and I can't listen to Rachel Reeves. But Andy Burnham, lovely northern accent, lots of energy, lots of, you know, this is what we're going to do to get it all going again. And it was hopeful, right? But hope isn't policy. So I'm hoping that we do hear more from, of course we will, when he becomes Prime Minister in about 3 weeks' time. But what do you think? Is he the answer to our problems? Is he going to be the saviour of the UK? Is he going to win you over? And what, in those decisions that he was making today, or those statements that he made today, really grabbed your attention? I think if he can deliver council houses to that number, brilliant. I'm all for that. I think that is a brilliant start. If he can buy British without it breaking the bank, brilliant. I'm all for that as well. So I don't know about devolution. I don't know if it's working. If you live in any of the devolved states, give me a call and let me know what you think. Does devolution work? Because he wants to spread that around the country. Look, it does work in other countries. It does. In Germany, for example, they've got devolved states, but for other reasons. So there's no concentration of power in any one place. But it does work for them. So give me a call. I really want to hear from you on this. 0344 499 1000. Well, the 2026 World Cup is well and truly underway. Right here on Talk, we're celebrating a massive summer of football in absolute style. How do you fancy getting your hands on a whopping £26,000 in tax-free cash? Just imagine that landing straight into your bank account, whether you'd clear the bills, book a luxury holiday, or just enjoy a bit of a financial breathing room. So if your bank balance could do with a serious boost this summer, here is everything you need to know.
For your chance to win, visit talk.tv/win or text TALK to 83338 by 6 p.m. on the 20th of July 2026. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or send your name and number by post to Comp 1 PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP. To arrive by midnight on the 23rd of July 2026. 18 plus, UK residents only. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here all with you. Just a reminder that coming up at the top of the hour we have Vincent Moss coming into the studio to go through the papers. Now then, the war in Ukraine has turned into a fierce battle of long-range drone strikes. Ukraine is repeatedly hitting oil refineries deep inside Russia, which has triggered real fuel shortages across the country and in occupied Crimea. Crimea is a really interesting point we'll come to in just a moment. In a TV interview, Russia's President Vladimir Putin admitted there is a fuel shortage, but insisted it isn't critical. He also flatly rejected a Ukrainian proposal for both sides to stop these long-range attacks, claiming that Kyiv is just trying to save its troops. Putin says Russia will keep fighting until it completely controls the 4 Ukrainian regions it claims. As for peace talks, he says, negotiations with the US are on hold until tensions in the Middle East cool down. Ukraine has called the strikes fair payback as President Zelensky vows to continue weakening Russia's economy until Putin agrees to real peace. And it is having a real effect on Russian people. What Zelensky wants to do over the next 40 days, he is going to be carrying out these bombardments, is to take the war home to Russians so that they feel it. And boy, they are feeling it. Well, joining me now to discuss this is Dr. Stephen Hall, who's an author and lecturer in Russian and post-Soviet politics at the University of Bath. Good to speak to you again. It's been a while.
Good to speak to you. It's been a while, Petrie.
Yeah. Let's have a look at the... I mean, for Putin to even acknowledge that there is an issue with fuel, I thought was quite interesting.
Well, certainly it is interesting, but at the same time, he did just say, sort it out, without saying how to sort it out.
Yeah.
As in, the expectation is that they will be able to sort it out. I mean, there's now fuel shortages apparently in 83 of Russia's regions, and some of those include the illegally held territories in Ukraine. So this is certainly, I would say, a polycrisis in regards to what Putin has experienced before. In the past, there have been crises, multiple crises, but they've always come in what fits and busts. Now it seems to be continuous, and his answer, yes, was to admit it. Don't think he can really say that it isn't happening, but it was to say, sort it out.
But it's all very well saying that, isn't it? Because there is an issue that I mean, look, he's an authoritarian. There isn't, he doesn't care really what the people think. But Russian people are feeling it now, and they haven't felt it in the same way as Ukrainians have felt it up until fairly recently, except for the numbers that have been killed and the young men and women not returning home. But this ultimately must have some impact on Putin if the country is in uproar about the way the war is going. Look, it's lasted a lot longer than Putin ever thought it would.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Putin claimed in 2014 that if he wanted to, he could take Kiev in 2 weeks. So this certainly has been a lot longer than Putin was expecting, and I think Russians were expecting. And it is certainly bringing it home, as it has been over the past year, I would argue, not just in terms of the oil, but most Russians now know of someone who has died in the war, or at least are aware that this is happening. And certainly the issue over petrol, over oil, is going to be problematic. I mean, even if you don't drive, you're likely to want to take a taxi at some point, and that becomes also very difficult. So yes, Russia is a personalist autocracy, but even the autocrat has to be aware of certain things. What he's tried to do is, yet again, what I would argue is the good Tsar, the bad boyas, is to tell his underlings to sort it out, and then he can turn around when they fail to sort it out and say, I tried my hardest, but yet again the system is corrupt, and you need to, only I can bring stability. Keep on voting for me in the upcoming parliamentary elections.
The people, though, that are closest to him must be starting to think, what is the benefit of this? Where is this going to end up? How is this going to end? There is by no means a certainty now that Russia will get what it wants. And if it does get what it wants, it's a few years away from getting it, it would appear. Will there not be some very dangerous for their lives chatter going on about Putin's longevity?
Well, there may well be. I mean, unfortunately, I'm not a fly on the wall in the Kremlin or in the inner circle. So I can't say. I imagine that we've seen with what happened with Yevgeny Prigozhin and the Wagner Group, that the next person who makes that attempt knows to go all the way this time. I forget the name of the soldier Lunin, I think, who said that the army is about to stage a coup. He was arrested and put into detention for 11 days, and they found Nazi memorabilia in his house after raiding it, and so he's gone as well. And this was, a video where he said, I would like to talk to you, Vladimir Vladimirovich. Please allow me to come and visit Moscow. Again, highlighting that if you're going to stage a coup, go the whole way. So certainly they may well be thinking about it, the inner circle, but they're also well aware that they are also to blame for this war. Putin has made it very clear that they are involved in the situation, and therefore, even if they were to remove Putin, are they necessarily going to stay in power? No one knows. No one knows what's going to come next. So they're all going to be, if they are, discussing possible repercussions and who's going to sit on which seat and all of these sorts of things. And they have to wait for someone to be brave enough to raise their head above the parapet, because they know, having seen what Putin has done with Prigozhin, how it possibly could end. This is all hypothetical. I have absolutely no idea who is coming. But, certainly they are probably discussing that this war has lasted a lot longer than they were expecting, but they need to know if their skin is going to be saved at the end of it.
The other interesting, and I said that in my talk up there, talking about Crimea, because the Ukrainians seem to be doing a very, very clever and astute job on one of the main routes, the main road that would carry supplies to Crimea. They're making sure that is, if not impassable, incredibly dangerous past time to get down that road to deliver anything to Crimea. And Crimea is increasingly under an enormous amount of pressure for supplies, not just of fuel, but of everything that they need, because they're basically just off an island, peninsula. So this is concerning, though, isn't it? Because this was Vladimir Putin's prize. Taking Crimea, building that bridge, making it Russian, that was his big achievement. Already rumours that he is getting so frustrated with Ukraine over their strangling Crimea that he's talking about nuclear weapons. It would probably be short-range, smaller nuclear weapons, but nonetheless, he's getting really frustrated, isn't he?
He is getting frustrated. I mean, Crimea is, you said, the pet project of Putin's presidency. I'm still not certain about nuclear weapons. I mean, in fairness, the Kremlin claims they're going to use nuclear weapons pretty much every week. So, especially Dmitry Medvedev. So it's hard to say whether Putin is seriously considering that. We've seen that the Oreshnik missile, which was supposed to be the saviour of the Russian military, it was tested again and it managed to take out a shed, but not much else. So this has certainly been problematic. But I think certainly, yes, Putin is going to be worried about what's happening with Crimea and the difficulties that are going on. I mean, he did also allude to it, that we will make sure that Crimea is supplied, and that will be by trains, which the Ukrainians have managed to target. It will be by roads. The Ukrainians have targeted that as well. And by ship, the Ukrainians have certainly targeted those. So it is going to be very difficult for what the Kremlin can actually achieve in the short term. What is interesting, and I saw, that you're showing pictures of Donald Trump, is that Donald has also started talking for the first time about Ukraine actually winning this war. Yeah. Now, that may change by tomorrow, because obviously things change in Donald's world very quickly. But for now, it is certainly a change in the American administration as well. So certainly I think Putin is worried about this. They started talking about the spirit of Anchorage again. Putin also knocked that on the head, that yes, there weren't any agreements, but we did discuss certain things. So I think he's trying desperately to find a way into Donald Trump's good books, trying to find an alternative in terms of the very difficult situation he's put himself into regarding the full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
It's also just looking at Ukraine. Of course, Vladimir Putin has benefited hugely, not just in the lifting of sanctions for his oil with the war in Iran, but he's also benefited for the lack of supply that Ukraine has been able to get from countries like America, for example, or at least certainly in the mid future, those supplies are dwindled because of America's own need for them. Putin, I would have imagined, would have tried to make headway with that, with all of those things against Ukraine, but they're very slow, making very slow progress.
Well, they are making very slow progress. You know, the Russian military has advanced at the speed of, well, I'd say a snail, but that's too fast. It has certainly been it's certainly been a very slow war for the Russian army. And yes, Ukraine has certainly suffered. I mean, it suffered since even before 2022 with the full-scale invasion. The West failed to supply Ukraine with sufficient weaponry. Don't get me wrong, the West has done an amazing job, but it could have done so much more. And certainly since Iran, yes, the price of oil went up and sanctions were lifted against Russia briefly, but the Iran war possibly has solved itself, or the Donald has done something. And we'll see whether that leads to a change in regards to Russia's ability to sell lots of oil. Yes, Ukraine does have problems in terms of getting munitions from America, but Ukraine has also been very ingenious in terms of developing its own weapon systems because of Donald Trump's intransigence, I would argue. So yes, it has been problematic for Ukraine, but I would argue it's certainly problematic for Russia as well. The Russian army is not moving quickly at all. And it's very hard to see how Putin would be able to get the Russian army to move quickly, having failed to achieve that in 5 years. Even they're talking about mobilization in Russia, at least on the sly. That I can't imagine is going to improve the situation. In fact, it will almost certainly make it worse. Putin calling for a mobilization would again highlight to Russian society that this war is not going well.
Yeah, I mean, and the other smart thing that Ukraine is doing, and I think Ukraine, in attacking the supply to Crimea, are sending Putin a personal message as well, that this was his big jewel in the crown. But the other thing is in stopping the supplies getting to those soldiers as well, that are the Russian soldiers that are fighting on the front lines, that they are going to be weakened by a lack of food, a lack of supply, a lack of weaponry as well. So Ukraine and the development of these weapons that you talk about, which they're now a world leader in, and suddenly they've got cards, as the Donald would say.
Well, absolutely. I think that, yes, certainly there were three things. You know, Ukraine is hitting Crimea, the jewel in the crown for Vladimir Putin. So that's always going to be personal. They may eventually hit the bridge. That would be catastrophic for Putin. It's also affecting the military because the supplies aren't making it into Russian-held territory, and because Ukraine is hitting inside Russia, a lot of the anti-air systems that were protecting the Russian front line are being moved back into Russia. Yeah. It's also affecting the legitimacy of what is a personalist autocracy, and there is one person on top of that hierarchy, and that will also affect his legitimacy as well. We've seen this in terms of what the upcoming parliamentary elections for United Russia, that they have moved away from the more hardline people within the Kremlin to talk about Sergei Shoigu, the mayor of Moscow, who said nothing about the special military operation or the war to you and I. Sergei Lavrov, who, yes, has been like a horse's face, but nevertheless hasn't said an awful lot in regards to the war, unless he needs to. So again, they're trying to move away from this. They're trying to keep the domestic side. But on the other hand, we've seen Putin talking consistently. Most of his facts were wrong when he spoke to Pavel Zarubin, the journalist he spoke to yesterday or the day before. But in terms of the where the Russian army is advancing, it's plausible that they may decide that Putin is trying to talk about how there's a stab in the back, the same justification that a certain gentleman of Austrian heritage gave in Germany back in the interwar period. So this may be something that he's going to try and play, that it's the domestic front that has actually failed. But who knows? I mean, the Kremlin will always try and find a narrative or multiple narratives and see which one sticks.
It is fascinating, though. Thank you. Very good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Stephen Hall, author and lecturer in Russian and post-Soviet politics at the University of Bath. A quick break, and we come back to talk about a lost national treasure.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you. And I'm sure you've seen this news today, but we wanted to pay tribute to actress Dame Penelope Keith, who died today at the age of 86. And she was known for her roles in the classic sitcoms The Good Life and To the Manor Born, which I love both of them. Her family said in a statement today that she died peacefully whilst living with cancer at her home in Surrey. Tributes have been paid by her friends and admirers, with Felicity Kendall, her co-star on The Good Life, remembering her as a comic genius who was a joy to work with. Dame Penelope was well known for playing snobbish suburban neighbour Margot Ledbetter in The Good Life. I mean, I just remember that whole Christmas episode where she was buying it from Harrods. It just had me crying with laughter. As well as the widowed aristocrat, Aubrey Forbes Hamilton in To the Manor Born. And if you needed a reminder, here's Penelope Keith and Felicity Kendall in The Good Life. This is Margot's muddy moment.
Now that is a miracle.
So much as sniggers, I'm going straight back indoors.
Well, if that's the best you can do, we'll be here till Christmas.
Well, thank you very much, Tom. Goodbye.
No, Margot. Oh, Tom, for goodness sake, that's the most ungrateful thing I've ever heard. I mean, Margot's doing her best. She's the odd one out here. It's not her fault if she's all weak and feeble.
Weak and feeble, am I?
And I'm sorry if you were listening to that on radio, but it was a very funny sketch. That's when Margot was dressed up with a sou'wester and a hat and everything and kept falling over in the mud. But absolutely brilliant, a legend of comedy. You can just see her there. She's just absolutely brilliant. Well, here to discuss this with me further is Beverly Lyons, entertainment journalist. Bev, good to see you. How are you doing? All right.
Great to see you, and what a comedy genius, as you've just said. I mean, you know, the thing is, Penelope Keith was not born an aristo at all. You know, her father was in the army and actually left her mother and her at a young age to sort of fend for themselves. And she lived in Surrey. She lived in Surrey for really all of her life. And she was told at the time, you know, she was way too tall when she tried to apply for drama school to actually be accepted, because she was 5'10", which in those days was way too tall for a female in acting. But she did eventually get in to another acting school, and she described herself as a plain Jane. And in actual fact, the whole Good Life thing, incidentally, came from a cigarette advert that she was in, and the writers saw her and thought she'd be great as Margot. But of course, they only gave her one line in the pilot episode, which meant, you know, she said she didn't notice. A lot of actors today would go, what, one line?
Yeah.
But, you know, she was so grateful for that part.
Yeah, her part grew, didn't it, as the series grew? Because in the beginning, you would often hear her voice off camera, but she was very rarely seen until obviously people started to fall in love with her, and then she just became, I think, one of the key character, actually.
Absolutely, because she had this way of pronouncing words and of just acting that part as the aristo that everybody, you know, loved to hate but didn't really hate, because she just managed to gain everybody's favour. She was the thinking man's crumpet, I suppose you could say. I seem to recall, I think my father had a wee thing for her, and I'm sure that many others did in that era. This, of course, came at a time when there were 3 channels on the telly.
Yeah.
And, you know, her role in To the Manor Born got 24 million views at its peak as well. She was also cut out, sadly, from a Carry On film. I don't know if you know that, Carry On Doctor, where she was described as a plain nurse, an everyday nurse.
Oh, no.
But you can see the outtakes on YouTube. There is that available. But she did lots for charity as well. She got her damehood, as we know, later on in life. But she was really, her training ground was also the Royal Shakespeare Company, of course, as well. And of course, quite a lot of people who were in To the Manor Born and The Good Life came from that background. So they really had great acting chops behind them, but just had a way with things as well. And I think she was, for as much as she got a damehood, I think that we sort of undervalued her. You know, we look at lots of actors these days and we hail them with such reverence, but
yeah.
I think
we didn't in those days, did we? And she was big news, of course, on the West End stage. I mean, she was a theatre actor. She worked a lot of shows.
Yeah, she was in Blithe Spirit and all that kind of thing as well. So, and again, a lot of comedic roles. Did play the odd sad role, but never took the tragedy to a peak, as some may. Because she knew that she had these great comedic features that everybody loved, and that was her thing.
I thought her performances were so, because with Margot, she was a character that we could see her flaws, her weaknesses, but she played it to comedy effect, but actually she was quite a sad, lonely woman, right, who was just trying to become something more. But she played it so well that it was that pathos. It was there was a sadness to her that I think made people fall in love with her. And that takes some brilliant acting to do that, because she was all gobby and mouthy and, you know, and horrible to Felicity Kendall all the time. But actually, we could see behind that, and she let us see that, and I think that's where the genius was in her performances.
Yeah, she took that part on totally, and of course she won Olivier Awards, she won BAFTA Awards, she was in the Donkey's Years again, productions that not everybody may know her for, of course, because the 2 most loved were of course Margot, and then of course Forbes Hamilton, or Ray Forbes Hamilton. But she was an actor to the highest degree, but equally not carried away with that status and very much a woman of the people. And I think that's why everybody and their mother has been paying tribute to her today. Sue Perkins, of course, saying that she led the way as a comic genius.
She really was brilliant. And she married a former police officer that she met outside of a theatre that she was working in. He was on duty. And then he resigned from policing and became her manager, and they adopted two boys.
Two children, two boys. Yeah, that shows just how down to earth she really was.
Yeah, I mean, and yet, like I said, she was this national treasure. And I don't think there's been many actors like her, and I think we did take her for granted. But the theatres in the West End are dimming their lights on Wednesday evening for 2 minutes, I believe.
Yeah, because of her background, obviously, because she's got so much behind her with the Royal Shakespeare, as we said. And, you know, she was in executive stress as a publishing, in a publishing house. She was in No Job for a Lady as a Labour MP. She was in Law and Disorder as a barrister. I mean, such was the depth of her roles. And as I say, Lady Bracknell as well, and the importance of being earnest. She could play anything and everything because she was a thesp, but without being a lovey.
Yeah, yeah, and it's because Felicity Kendall, of course, is still working as well. She's 80, I think, and she's still working in the West End at the moment. You know, these actors really. We need to treasure them, I think. They are just so extraordinary. It's the early days
of telly, as we say, in the 70s, and still going strong today. And, of course, she did do a thing about saving country houses as well.
Oh, she did some documentaries, didn't she? Yeah.
That was this year, sort of last year going into this year. So I'm sure that will be re-aired as well. I think that's Channel 4. So we will see that. But everybody's been paying tribute to her. Obviously, we are doing it on Talk as well, but Talking Pictures, telly as well. Giles Brandreth, of course, too. So he just said she was a friend, she was a lady, she gave to charitable causes, and of course, she had a good life.
Very nicely done. Beverly, thank you very much indeed. Beverly Lyons there discussing the good life that Dame Penelope Keith had. She died today, aged 86. Right, coming up, we've got Vincent Moss. He's going to be here in the studio to go through the stories of the day and, of course, the stories of tomorrow.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you, and don't forget, coming up at 12 o'clock in an hour's time, it is your chance to talk back. And what I want to talk to you about is undoubtedly our new Prime Minister. A slight caveat there, but undoubtedly our new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, who made his first speech since becoming MP for Makerfield this morning. And I wonder what you make of what he had to say. I mean, I thought it was a tricky speech for him because ostensibly he is only there really to talk about being MP for Makerfield, but of course he wasn't. He was there as a prospective, almost certain Prime Minister. So it was difficult for him to do that without sounding like he was already Prime Minister, which he isn't, but looks set to be in about 3 weeks' time. So what he had to say was important, and all of the press were hanging off his every single word. I don't know if you saw any of it or heard anything about it, but look, I can tell you bits about it. It was very upbeat, it was very hopeful, it was very different to what we're used to from Dua Keir Starmer. That's without a shadow of a doubt. But we know that about Andy Burnham, right? He's a charmer, he's good at the public speaking, he can sell a story. So the question is really, was there any substance to the story he was selling? No, not really, because in a sense he couldn't give us substance because he's not yet Prime Minister. So he was trying to sort of tread this path, which I think was tricky, and I'm not sure he achieved what he set out to achieve by doing so. But nonetheless, you've got an idea of the man. He wants to increase the council housing stock. Now, that's significant because we hear all the time about affordable housing, don't we? The Labour government said, we're going to build 1.5 million affordable homes. Well, they're way off target, and they're not affordable. I've long said the only truly affordable homes for many, many people in this country is social housing. So when they talk about affordable homes, it's a lie. It's not true. It doesn't work. So with Andy Burnham, he's cut that and said, no, it's not about affordable homes, it's about council homes. But he didn't tell us how he's going to pay for it. He wants to build 1.5 million council homes, and he said that this was an imperative. This was necessary for the country, and I agree with him. I think that it is, but we want to know how they're going to be paid for. But it's a good start, right? That's great. He says he wants 10 years in order to achieve this. Well, Keir Starmer said that. He got, what, less than 3 to do anything? So we don't have the patience to wait around anymore. So but he wants 10 years to achieve all these things. He also talked about buying British, which he's managed to achieve in Manchester. However, it does make things more expensive. So is he really going to stick to buy British if he's got other constraints on the budget? He talked about a number 10 of the North and further devolution. But does devolution work? And Scotland, as we know, a proportion of Scotland is fed up with devolution. They want to separate completely from Britain. They want to be Scotland. They want to go. They want another independence referendum. So they're annoyed by talk of further devolution. And the number 10 of the North. I mean, how is that going to work? There were reports earlier on X, we haven't been able to stand it up, that Andy Burnham's saying he doesn't even want to live at number 10, that he wants to live in Manchester. Well, that's naive, isn't it? Because Parliament is in London. You know, he's going to have meetings, he's going to have to see people, he's not going to be able to go up and down on the train. And if he does go up and down on the train, what kind of cost is that going to have for all these people? It's like Brussels and whatever, you know, all the time, switching, going to different places. Does it work? Is it going to end up costing us more? But look, these are the barriers that are in his way, the affordability of what he's talking about. But are you optimistic in the direction he wants to take the country? Are you pessimistic about the direction he wants to take the country? Or do you not believe a word? We've heard all this before, haven't we? So give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Those calls are charged at the national rate. We do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. Well, joining me now to go through the papers and to discuss this story is Vincent. Hello there. How
Hi,
are
Petrie.
you?
Very well, thank you.
It's good to see you. Now, listen, it is... I should give you a full title, really, shouldn't I? Vincent Moss, former political editor. What did you make of Andy Burnham this morning? Did you see it?
Yes, it did. I think it was the right speech at the right time. We all want to hear a bit more hope. Everybody wants to hear a message of change. He said all of those things. He hit all the right notes. Very positive, upbeat message, the sort of thing you probably could have done more of hearing from Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, when she came in and delivered a very downbeat message. And Andy Burnham's gone the other way, and it's exactly what many people will want to hear, even talk about potentially helping people out with the cost of living crisis, although he didn't say how. As you say, loads more council homes, didn't say how they're going to be funded. Will that mean more borrowing? What will that mean for taxes? So an awful lot of positive things in there, but without a clear route map of how he plans to get there.
Like I said, it was tricky for him today, not giving him excuses, but just looking at the facts of the situation, is that he's not yet Prime Minister. So for him, if he'd stood there and said, right, I've got all these policies, a lot of people have gone, oh, you're a bit cocky, aren't you? You're a bit arrogant. I mean, he's definitely got the job, but still, it's not been signed off yet. So he kind of had to hold back a bit, didn't he? I mean, it's probably an excuse because he hasn't got a clue what he's going to do and how he's going to do it. But nonetheless, it was a tricky moment for him.
Oh, very much so, because he couldn't look arrogant, because he's unlikely to become Prime Minister. He's not even Labour leader yet, so he's unlikely to become Prime Minister until about July the 20th, the day after the World Cup final. So who knows what that will mean for England winning or losing if they get that far. And I think the real problem he also has is, while he's been granted some access to information about government, he won't know what the books are showing really and where the direction of travel is. So he needs to sort of skill up and learn all of that fairly quickly, and then he'll be in a better position to make more decisions and better decisions. That said, I don't think there's any secret money tree around in Whitehall that's going to give him a huge undiscovered pot of money that's going to fund a lot of the things he's talked about, and that will be the real challenge. He's spoken in a very upbeat way, talked about a lot of things that would please a lot of people, steered clear of immigration, which is quite interesting. It was only a 30-minute speech, but big issue, and managed to sort of skirt around that. But he's going to have to explain how he's going to fund a lot of these things. Very positive things like reforming business rates to boost hospitality and lots of other things people wanted to hear. But he didn't really explain how he's going to fund it. He'll say that's for another day, but he's going to have to answer those questions fairly soon. And he didn't take any questions today.
No, he didn't take any questions, which actually Kemi Badenoch, who had done a speech earlier on, just before him actually, made a point about that. She said, you know, Reform don't take questions, you know, the Labour don't take questions, but I'll always take questions. And she does, actually, and she does always try to answer them, it seems.
I would say as a journalist, we obviously want to ask questions. Of course. But I do think on this occasion, it goes counterintuitively, perhaps for me to say this, he did the right thing, because if he'd taken media questions, he'd have been a barrage of questions about who's going to be a Chancellor. Will it be Ed Miliband? Will it be Pat McFadden? Who else will it be? And instead of the headlines being about his speech and the contents of his speech, it would have been about Andy Burnham refuses to say who's going to get the top jobs in his cabinet, which in itself would have looked presumptive and taken the headlines away from where he wanted them to be. So while it's greatly frustrating for all those London-based journalists who travelled up to Manchester to hear him speak, from his point of view it probably made sense, because otherwise I think the whole coverage might have been dominated about...
Oh, utterly. It would have said Andy Burnham unprepared for number 10. But it was interesting when obviously he did allude to his cabinet and said, look, that's for later, you know, don't believe all the rumours that you're hearing. But it's not just rumours, is it? There are people hustling for positions. There are people trying to keep jobs that they quite like or get new jobs that they would prefer. And we know the horse trading that's going on. We know that there's been some quite significant horse trading to get Wes Streeting not to throw his hat into a ring and therefore avoiding any kind of contest. And it looks like Andy's going to just go straight go straight into that top job. But that's going to be the most telling part of all of this. I'm more interested in who his cabinet is going to be than I am about any of his policies at this point.
Well, very much so, because at the end of the day, he'll need money to deliver on these promises, and the Chancellor's a key appointment. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, apparently refused to fund the defence plan in the way that the defence ministers wanted it funded. John Healey, the Defence Secretary, before he quit over that, and his deputy Al Carnes, who also quit over that. So it's a critical appointment. We know that the markets and the money markets are very worried by the prospect of Ed Miliband with his commitment to net zero and what that could mean for government borrowing costs. So that's an appointment that, while popular in parts of the Labour Party, would very much spook the markets. A very difficult choice in there. And as you rightly say, we know the former Health Secretary, who was one of the first to quit, Wes Streeting, looks like he's been promised a top job. So what will that be? So everybody's looking for a job. All Labour politicians and politicians of all parties all think they can do the job better than whoever's doing it at the time.
Yeah.
So they'll all be going for jobs. And some of those appointments won't matter too much. But one in particular, everybody's focused on, and Andy Burnham won't give a clue who it is yet. And that's the Chancellor's job, and we're all desperate to find out who that will be, because that's a very significant appointment.
And that'll tell us which direction he's going to go into as well, if he's going to try and, you know, he did allude in his speech to the fact that he has to have a mixed bag. I mean, I don't think that's the words he used, but basically he has to draw from all sides of the party and into his cabinet, that it's been too fractious under Keir Starmer, that, you know, Keir Starmer was unable to please anybody on the right or the left, and it's all been broken up. But in order to achieve that mixed bag, some of his mates, his friends, surely will have to be left out of the cabinet.
Well, there's about 24, 25 jobs potentially, and you can always put people in the cabinet without paying them. There's been unpaid positions. So I'm sure he'll want to make sure all his allies and those supported him in his leadership campaign get rewarded. He's close to people like Lou Haig and Lisa Nandy and Annalise Midgley.
Lou Haig went out in, you know, and under a cloud of I think it was fraud to do with mobile phones. You had the Red Queen.
Lou Haig is the one with the red hair, you mean?
No, she's the one that dies. Oh, God, what's her name? She went out because she didn't pay her
Oh, Angela Rayner,
Angela
yes,
Rayner,
with the property tax issues.
Yeah. I mean, and if he brings those people back in, will that leave a sour taste in people's mouths?
Well, I think an awful lot of politicians have had to leave cabinet for one reason or another under the Conservatives and other parties, and I think people's memories are reasonably short on this. He will have to bring people in from the left, but he'll also have to bring in Wes Streeting and Pat McFadden, who's seen as one of your earlier guests. I think Dave Wooding was talking about very centrist, very sensible centrist candidate, a sort of Blairite who's sort of been around a long time, worked with Gordon Brown as well, Tony Blair, and seen as a sort of popular person in terms of being able to control the purse strings reasonably well. So there's an awful lot of a balancing act, as there always is with these things to be done. But traditionally, Prime Ministers, especially in the Labour Party, and Chancellors have never got on very well. I mean, we famously think of Tony Blair and Gordon Brown.
Yeah.
So he'll be looking for a good relationship with his Chancellor. He'll also have to think about the optics. There's been a fair bit of noise, of course, that Labour has yet again looks as though it's not going to be picking a female leader, which it hasn't done in its history. So he'll be thinking about the four great officers of state and making sure there's a balance there as well. Now, he's got Yvette Cooper at Foreign Secretary, Shabana Mahmood at Home Secretary. He'll want to make sure probably at least two, if not three, given he's a man, of those top four jobs probably go to women. So that's another thing he's going to have to balance as well.
That is a real balance, isn't it? I mean, I think Shabana Mahmood will probably stay where she is, but I think Yvette Cooper will be heft out.
I think everything's up for grabs potentially, and I think that a lot of the speculation, including what we're doing right now, we just don't know, and we don't know what deals he's done, and there's only probably about 4 or 5 people who really do know about those top jobs.
James Purnell, of course, being one of them.
Exactly, and he's bringing back James Purnell, one of his old mates from the noughties, you know, former big Blairite character, and seen as very much, again, on that wing of the party. So he's got some awfully sort of left-wing chums, if you like, and some sort of right-wing people he's already giving jobs to or lining up for jobs. So it's going to be a very interesting next 12 months or so, and we're starting to get to that period where we've got Labour conference in September, but I think
budget in October.
But you're then into sort of the 2 or 3 years before the next election. So, and of course there'll be perennial pressure on him to hold an election, which he won't want to do because he'll lose an awful lot of MPs, because people will say, well, you weren't elected, I think you should go to the country.
Oh, there will be a big pressure, except that I don't think that neither Reform nor the Tories want an election right now. Neither of them are ready.
No, that's right. I mean, the Conservatives are worried they'd lose a lot of seats, and Labour, with its 400 MPs, the predictions are if it goes to the country now, could lose 200 of those. So while Andy Burnham was elected for the MP for Makerfield, he's not stood on, he didn't sort of campaign with the party and get elected on that manifesto, although he has said significantly when it comes to spending and tax commitments, he'll stick by the Labour 2024 election manifesto.
Well, he had to, didn't he?
Yes.
He had to, because the markets would have been horribly spooked if they thought that he was going to be tax and spend.
That's right, yes.
Or borrow and spend. So that's what we're talking about at midnight. Do you have faith that Andy Burnham could be the man to save the country, to take us in a direction that you think we should be going into, or do you not believe a word of it? 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, this is Talk, and it's Petrie, and with me is Vincent Moss, former political editor. The Times, quite a full front page. Let's kick off with Sir Keir Starmer will unveil an additional $15 billion for defence today, that being Tuesday, amid significant concerns about how long-term projects intended to transform the armed forces will be funded. Now, it's a $2 billion increase on what John Healey and Al Khan's quit over. Some will say it's simply not enough.
That's right. I mean, it's more than was originally planned in this defence investment plan, the DIP as it's being called. So more money, but still long-term doubts, as the Times reports, on how things will be funded. And there have been some sort of various leaks and press releases about this ahead of the actual announcement, talking about, for example, announcing that the Type 45 destroyers will be coming out, but it doesn't say, there were no details about their cost or when they would be built. So there's a lot of sort of talk about more investment, but without much detail, and a fear that a lot of the funding is at the back end of this Parliament, so it's further down the line. And again, no real talk, as far as we know, about when Britain will live up to this commitment to lift defence spending to the higher levels demanded by Trump. I think we're about at 2.4% at the moment, and obviously the pressure is to get that above 3.5%. So a lot of unanswered questions. I mean, we know we're going to be looking more at using drones and developing things like that.
The new technology, which is cheaper.
Very much so.
It is so much cheaper, but there was some talk earlier on today about some of the leaks that came out that said, look, cheap doesn't mean we've got to get, you know, tin pot, Timu type destroyers. You know, we've got to still have decent kit. So, you know, just because some of the stuff is cheaper, it doesn't mean that everything's going to be cheaper. And especially if Andy Burnham wants to buy British. Well,
exactly. And the military chief seems to say it's not an either or. I mean, you can have loads of drones, but you still need somewhere to launch them from, and you're going to need ships of some sort. So, but the big challenge for the MOD, and it has been for decades really, is it's seen as a very inefficient department when it comes to procurement and when it it comes to buying and projects overrunning and costs being overspent. And that's the challenge for the MOD. And I think, again, another big appointment for the very likely Prime Minister Andy Burnham is who's going to be, I mean, at the moment it's Dan Jarvis. I'm sure we want to keep him there, but what's going to happen to the MOD and who's he going to appoint perhaps alongside Dan Jarvis to really sort of invigorate and go through the defence spending with a fine-tooth comb to ensure we finally get value for money on our defence spending?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that needs to happen is that the serving men and women are treated better, that they get a pay bump, that they get, you know, because they're the ones that have to use this equipment, where everybody just concentrates on the equipment all the time. And you've got to think about the personnel, the people, recruitment, retention, you know, giving them decent housing to live in, giving them decent living standards, giving them a decent wage. I mean, what these men and women go through on our behalf is absolutely extraordinary.
Well, very much so.
And they've got to pay attention to that.
That's right. And John Healey did try to improve military housing, military accommodation, and that work is underway. But again, it's a huge military housing estate, and a lot of it is subpar and needs improving. So, yeah,
and
again...
it has done for decades.
It has.
It's all prefab. A lot of it is prefab. It's falling apart. It's damp. And we're expecting our armed forces to die for us. And we're not even prepared to give them a dry, clean home to live in. That's where a lot of that money
very much so. And the care they need when they leave. Some of them who have psychological problems after they leave the military and all that sort of post-service care and the rest of it. So, yeah, another big potential spending commitment that Andy Burnham is going to have to... And he's talked about sort of, as people were hoping he would do, perhaps, cutting the welfare bill, but that's going to be a big challenge for him as well, because it's all very well promising money on the one side of the balance sheet, but he's going to have to find savings elsewhere to fund that.
The thing is, though, that when he says cutting the welfare bill, what he actually means is not cutting the welfare bill, but getting people off welfare into work, which is all very well and good, and that would organically reduce the welfare bill, but it isn't cutting the welfare bill, and I don't think he's got the cojones to do it.
No, and not least because that's a front-loaded spend, because you have to spend an awful lot of money to get people into work, and you don't see the savings till a lot further down the line.
Till a lot further down the line. So he isn't going to cut welfare. He's going to try and organically reduce it, which is a very, very different promise, and we need that money now.
Well, that's right, and people forget that when there was a welfare rebellion that was very difficult for Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, that was just about cutting the rate of increase in the welfare spending. It wasn't really even about cutting welfare spending.
It was about making it more difficult going forward for people, rather than cutting what we've got at the moment. Right, so Burnham, the next headline is Burnham pleads for 10 years to rewire the UK. We're all getting really bored of them asking for 10 years. Starmer wanted 10 years. He now wants 10 years, and no doubt the Reform Party will say they want 10 years. We're all waiting and waiting and waiting, and nothing changes. So I'm afraid of somebody saying, I need 10 years.
I think they've got to, though, haven't they? Because they know that the rate of growth in our economy is so slow that you need years and years and years to turn things around for people to see change.
We don't believe it's going to turn around.
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? Is that all the things that need investment and all the promises that are made, whether it's in terms of healthcare, and there are improvements. There were improvements under Wes Streeting, for example, in healthcare, and waiting lists coming down and treatment times being improved. But the change was so incrementally slow that people weren't really seeing that change. The same with cost of living crisis. We know that fuel bills are going to rise again July the 1st, and then after that they may come down a bit. But people are being promised change, and the changes that are happening, and Labour will point to many of them, are just happening way too slowly to have the impact that any political party needs to get re-elected at the moment.
And the other thing is, of course, we are so used to the prices going up, but when do we ever see them come back down? So when Andy Burnham talks about the cost of living crisis, he's talking about more handouts, not helping to reduce the cost to everybody. So, again, that is really boring, because it's like, well, yeah, OK, we keep hearing you're going to change the cost of living, but you don't. The prices never... I can't remember when prices went up and then came back down again to the same place they were. ever.
No, and inflation looks as though it's going to remain reasonably high for the rest of the year. We know that fuel bills are going up on July the 1st because of price caps effectively going up a little bit, 13% I think it is. So there's all sorts of prices going up, and people aren't really seeing the movement the other direction, and wage rises are just, again, not keeping pace with that.
No.
So most people are still have been effectively in a cost of living crisis for 15 or 20 years, effectively.
Yeah, and we never see it. We never see it come back down again. This is quite an interesting story. One in the AI, good headline, for tech after Ford rehires what they're calling greybeards. This is after the American car manufacturer has pivoted back to human beings with experience after an experiment in using artificial intelligence backfired. It's rehired 350 veteran technicians, nicknamed the Greybeards, to train younger workers and the AI tools. So they've asked them to come back to train AI to replace them. I tell you what I'd tell them to do with that. Stuff it.
Well, I guess so, but if you've retired or just been made redundant or something and you've got another 5 years potentially, are you going to take it? You probably will take it, yeah, but it is a kind of turkeys voting for Christmas, because obviously once you've trained the AI to do your job, you are de facto redundant. But then what's the alternative? I suppose you can't really, I guess if you're not going to train the AI, somebody else is. And also the AI isn't asking these days, it seems to me. So the AI, if it wants to, for example, to learn to be a TV presenter or a journalist or a written journalist, all it does is copies, often without people's permission, usually often without people's permission, and then it learns all the skills, and then there it is. Now, luckily at the moment, it's still not great at doing that, and anybody who's read an AI book or listened to some AI music will have a lot of criticisms of it. So at the moment, it's not there, thankfully, and the more we encourage people to make sure that AI is trained on stuff with people's consent and that people get paid for it, the better it will be in the long run for all of us, I think.
I tell you what, though, a lot of my friends do, they're voiceover artists, and it's completely changed now. You kind of got your own microphone at home, and you scroll through these websites and pick up these jobs, and it will take you a couple of minutes, and you do this job, you might get 10 quid for it. It's very low paid now, but if you do enough of them, you might get 30 quid or you might get 40 quid. If you do enough of them during the day, then you can make a reasonable living. Most of the adverts now for voiceovers is to train AI to do voiceovers.
It's terrible. And not only that, but you can train the AI to sound like somebody famous.
I know.
So you could say, I want my advert for chocolate to sound like Robert De Niro.
I know.
Or something, or Meryl Streep, or something like that. You could get a really famous person to do it. So it's really, really difficult and pretty unfair. And that's why you're getting a lot of famous people now with distinctive voices or distinctive faces trying to protect their intellectual property, because they don't want their famous voice being cloned or used for free without their consent, and that's what's happening.
It is. That's exactly what's happening. But I feel so sorry, and people I know who are copywriters as well, completely out of work now. Yeah, they're not getting any work at all.
Terrible. The whole industries are being wiped out.
Whole industries, because of AI. The Daily Telegraph got a fabulous photograph there just before we go to the break. Naomi Osaka continued her string of Grand Slam fashion statements today, and she's in a white sort of kimono with a lace skirt for her walk-on. She's a Japanese player, but her walk-on outfit, and she's really stirring things up at Wimbledon with these walk-on outfits. She was wearing something very dramatic the other day with a net hat. I think it's brilliant. I'm not a big fan of tennis, but I think it's absolutely brilliant. But people are going, well, she's showing off, this is terrible, this is not what we expect from Wimbledon.
She is showing off, it's fabulous. And the way she's holding her tennis racket, she looks like a warrior.
Samurai warrior.
So she does, absolutely. And of course, some of the men have done this in the past. Roger Federer used to come on to court with very sort of stylish men's jackets and men's blazers, and I'm all for it. I bet you that some of the crusty grey beards at Wimbledon are not too content about it. They had this famous all-white code. I'm sure when they came up with that all-white dress code, they weren't imagining people coming on in kimono.
In a kimono. I mean, she looks absolutely stunning, and like you said, that she does look like some kind of warrior in that outfit. But fashion queen of Wimbledon, and why not?
Absolutely, she's only on court 3. She's not going to win. So she's raising her profile, doubtless increasing her sponsorship money, and why not make a fashion statement? It's a it's a good place for fashion, and you know, all the royal box are there dressed up in their finery,
Exactly.
and nice to see some of the players making an effort as well.
Yeah, I just think it's fantastic. Anything that shakes up the old guard is all right by me.
Yes.
We'll come back to the Telegraph in just a moment, but first a very quick break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, this is Talk, and it is Petrie, and with me, Vincent Moss, former political editor. It's interesting, the junior doctor's pay to hit 100 grand. Medics call off strike after agreeing a deal that raises their salaries 35% in the past 4 years. I mean, come on, that's all right, isn't it?
It's astonishing, and everybody else will be very envious of those salary increases. 35% over 4 years is massive, and
it's huge.
Takes their average salary, so not to over 100,000, and their starting salaries will go up to 41,000. And of course, there's lots of extra payments that resident doctors, as they're now called, can earn, and the pensions are very good too. So they are on a stratospheric series of pay rises, although they will tell you, the resident doctors and their negotiators, it's not enough, and they're still below in real terms where they were in 2008. So they may come back again, as many organisations and unions do, if they've been successful year after year, but it's a lot of money, it's a huge increase, 35% in 4 years, and has caused some resentment among other elements of the healthcare community, because they would like similar wage rises, and they're probably unlikely to get them.
Wouldn't we all?
We would.
Yeah, 35% over 4 years is an extraordinary lift in wages. And so Stuart Andrew, the Shadow Health Secretary, said many will be relieved that these strikes are over, but at what cost? This is the second consecutive year that Labour has had to make major concessions to end these strikes, and the BMA is already planning further industrial action, because I think they originally asked for 38%.
That's right, and it will go on. I mean, the BMA quoted in this Telegraph article as saying, this is by no means the end of road for pay restoration. Even with our progress in the last few years, we're still nearly a fifth behind 2008 levels of pay. So this is a continuing crusade to restore resident doctors' pay to 2008 pay levels in real terms as they see it. But of course, the measure they've used to establish what that figure is disputed by the government.
Yes.
And they use, because there's different measures of inflation you can use over that period. People negotiating pay rises will always use a higher method of like RPI as opposed to CPI, and I think that's what may have happened in this case. But it certainly means that it's going to be an issue that's going to come back year after year after year, I suspect.
Well, and this is also because Labour want to prove that they're making changes, and good changes, to the NHS, which they can't do if everyone's on strike all the time. The other story says Burnham sets out a 1970s vision for Britain. Andy Burnham has laid out a radical vision to return Britain to the 70s with state intervention in the markets and mass social housing programme. In his first speech since returning to Westminster, Prime Minister in waiting said from the mid-80s onwards the economy had not worked for ordinary people. I don't think it worked that well for ordinary people in the 70s either.
No, it didn't. And
There's a heck of a lot of poverty around.
Well, that's right. It's a bit alarmist. I mean, I think when it talks about state intervention, what the only particular area perhaps is alluding to is perhaps taking Thames Water, which is sort of an absolutely doomed basket case of a company, under some kind of more increasing, take it under state control. And we've already seen the railways, which are falling back into state control as the franchises come up for renewal. So there's a bit of that going on, and the water industry is certainly an area that needs looking at because of the terrible state that large parts of it are in. So,
but it's also about security. It's also about the security for the country, and he did allude to that in his speech, didn't he? In saying that you know that taking back some of these things and making sure that we have secure water, that we have secure defence, that we have all of those things is a really important part of the job of government.
Yes, exactly, and certainly one of Labour's more popular policies was the effective renationalisation of the railways, which always came out very well in polling, and I suspect you'd probably find the same with taking a stronger grip on the water industry, and that will be an area that I think, depending on the cost, because the suggestion is it could be a very expensive thing to do, that sort of getting a grip of Thames Water, which is
well, we could just take it back, we could have to buy it. It's in
exactly.
debt.
Yes. If you take it back, it's one thing, but obviously if you try and buy out the company, that would be tens of billions.
Yeah, tens of billions. There would be an issue with the debt, I suppose. May have to take the debt on, but we'd not by certainty. We could just say, look, we'd just take it. This is an interesting nib at the bottom here. Asylum seekers will be forced to pay back £10,000 of their hotel accommodation and benefit bills. Under new rules announced by Shabana Mahmood, the migrants will be barred from settling permanently unless they pay off the £10,000 charge once they start work.
Yeah, that's a fascinating story. And if it wasn't such a busy news day, I'm sure it would be a much bigger story. The idea that if migrants are going to be charged for their accommodation costs and would have to pay it back under a sort of similar system to the student loan scheme, which is what the Telegraph is suggesting, would be a huge deterrent to coming to this country if you thought you were going to be landed with a very big bill for your accommodation and other costs. It's an idea that, again...
They should certainly pay back their legal fees.
Yes. And
any legal fees.
And it would be extremely, as Labour faces this sort of challenge from the right and Reform and Nigel Farage and others, I would have thought it'd be an idea that would prove extremely popular. Now, quite how workable it would be, like many of these ideas when you go suing people for money, is hard to know. But
well, the way the student loan works is they don't have a say in it.
Yes, exactly. It would be taken out of your pay packet.
Yeah.
I mean, that assumes that you'd have traditional employment where you're in a position where they can do that.
Yeah.
But it's an idea that sounds, I would imagine, would be largely could prove very popular.
Yeah, I think that would prove very popular. There was also another policy, wasn't it, she wanted to do, which is to have the people panels who are not judges who decide on immigration status of migrants who are looking for refugee status, whatever, that these will be people panels rather than judges that come up with the final verdict.
That sounds a lot more hard to implement to me, I would have thought, because one, how would you know? I mean,
how do you know it was fair?
How do you know it was fair?
Because everyone's going to go, no. No.
Exactly.
No.
Or from the other side of the coin, some people may say yes. So, and you want impartial people doing it. So that sounded a trickier to implement idea than perhaps this one, where you could just take money straight out of people's pay packets.
Yeah. Let's have a look at the Daily Star, and they've got a cutout of an Andy Burnham mask. Can't be bothered to stand to be PM? Here's your free Andy Burnham mask. It will get you straight into number 10 without anyone voting for you. So this is obviously a jibe at Andy Burnham, who hasn't been voted by anybody apart from the good people of Makerfield.
No, that's right. And the Daily Star, famously, who brought you the lettuce that outlived Liz Truss, has got a bit of form when it comes to taking the mickey out of prime ministers or future prime ministers. So it's an interesting idea. Cut out and keep Andy Burnham mask, but I can't see anybody cutting it out and wearing it. Can you? No,
not really. Not with those eyebrows they've put on there.
No.
If there's anyone for PM, nobody chose him either. The I paper, Burnham pledges growth, housing and number 10 of the North in his vision for a rewired Britain. And as you said earlier, Vincent, this is well played by him, because he got everything he wanted on the front pages, and none of the, Andy Burnham isn't ready for number 10 or, any of that stuff. So he's definitely managing to get the right communications through.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, the one idea we haven't perhaps talked about is this idea of a number 10 of the North, and people are deriding that a bit. What does it mean? How would it work? How would he see his defence chiefs and all his cabinet ministers if he was in the North? It seems to have been trimmed a bit. He'll spend 1 day a week at least in the North, and that sounds a lot more doable than creating a number 10 in the North, which sounds like a bit of a fragmentation of central government when you do need your cabinet together, you do need your senior civil servants all in one place. So I'm not entirely sure how that would work. It'd be interesting to see what his plans are for that. It says people are working on it already. But again, if you're going to have a number 10 in the North, why not have a number 10 in Devon and Cornwall? Why not have one in East Anglia?
Exactly. It just reminds me of when the BBC decided that they were going to devolve and have all of these programmes in Manchester. And everybody got their notification that they were going to be moving to Manchester, or if you were selected. And so many people just said no. And they got their train fares and their taxis, in some cases a taxi all the way to Manchester. I mean, the costs to the BBC were massive because they had the breakfast show up there, and they couldn't get any politicians because all the politicians were in London, or visiting celebrities would be flying into Heathrow, not Manchester Airport. But they still made it work by spending millions and millions of licence fee payers' money on getting people up and down the M6.
That's right, and that would be the risk with this, is you'd have senior civil servants perpetually, doubtless in first class on the train, costing a fortune, going up and down all the time.
Not working.
And not being able to get a Wi-Fi signal and leaving their briefcases full of sensitive documents on the train and all the rest of it. So, yeah, it sounds like a great idea in principle, but probably very hard to implement. Then again, though, the previous Prime Ministers have enjoyed spending weekends at the country home Chequers, the official PM's retreat. So it's not uncommon for Prime Ministers to spend 1 or 2 or 3 days away from Downing Street. A lot of Prime Ministers were off at Friday lunchtime, perhaps, and didn't return until Monday morning.
That's a good point. I'd be interested to see if Mr Socialist, Andy Burnham, actually uses all of these perks, like Chequers. I mean, it was reported on X earlier that he doesn't even want to live at number 10. Well, I mean...
Well, I mean, number 10 at the end of the day...
It's only a small flat,
It's a flat, and it's got a garden that is very overlooked by everybody else.
Yeah.
And it's in the middle of nowhere, really. And if he's got a big house in Manchester... The security's there, although they can always move the security. So I think... But if he doesn't want to use his country houses, he'll find there's an awful lot of his fellow cabinet ministers that are very keen to use them. So there won't be any shortage of people looking to use the
It's just always interesting to see the cut of somebody's cloth. You know, when they get these grace and favour, like Angela Rayner and Rachel Reeves sharing. Is it not Dorneywood? Is it Dorneywood?
Dorneywood. And then there's other grace and favour homes. So Chevening and all sorts of places. So there'll be people who, especially in the summer, will not mind enjoying a country place.
We only need one of those country places. The rest of them should be sold off.
Also, but then again, bear in mind, he's a big football fan, Andy Burnham, and he'll probably want to be near his beloved Everton Football Club, and all his friends and family will be based in and around the Manchester area. So he's got good reasons for being there. Leaving aside the obvious political reasons, it'll be very popular with his base.
It will be very popular with his base, but I just don't see how it's. I just can't see how it's going to work. I really don't know how that's going to happen. Like I said, it just reminds me of the chaos of the BBC when they did that, and it's still ongoing, by the way. It costs a fortune to get people up there to work there. It's Coming Homes, the Daily Mirror. Burnham's housing ambition. Ambitious Andy Burnham promised the biggest council house building drive since the post-war era as he unveiled his blueprint for power. Again, we need to know how it's all going to be paid for.
Exactly, and also the Labour government's already behind with its house building plans.
Massively behind. We don't have the people.
Yeah, we don't have the people, we don't have the materials, don't have the skill sets to build some of these homes, and obviously a lot of people are objecting to homes being built because neighbours don't like homes near them. So there's all sorts of problems with house building. Might be a bit easier in Manchester, and he's got a lot of skyscrapers going up in Manchester, but in other parts of the country, whether it's rural or cities, it's not easy to get homes built, and that's leaving aside the funding. Although it's quite a clever headline, it's Coming Homes, because it's got the kind of double entendre with the kind of football slogan, I suppose. Yeah,
I guess so. Right, let's take a very quick break before we carry on with the rest of the papers. And Vincent and I'll be back in just a moment.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here. With me is Vincent Moss, former political editor, and we're going through the papers. Unsurprisingly, it's all about Andy Burnham because of his big speech earlier on this morning. But Burnham wants, this is the Daily Mail, Burnham wants to rewire Britain from Manchester base. Would-be PM plans to run the country from a number 10 in the north and will keep his Wigan property as his main residence, not Downing Street. Does that mean we pay for it?
I think
As
it
a
means.
second home
I think it means there'll be police and security around it, but I don't think.
That costs us a fortune.
It's expensive protecting prime ministers these days. It won't be cheap.
Because number 10 will still have to be protected in the same way.
Yes.
Because of number 11 and the Chancellor.
And
So it would be double the policing cost.
Yes, and well, they may. I mean, that may not even matter for him in some ways because there'll have to be a security assessment of wherever he wants to live, and sometimes prime ministers are told that they can't stay where they want to stay because their homes aren't safe enough for various reasons. So that'll have to happen. But I think that the Mail is very much trying to make people believe the idea that the country will be run from Manchester, which I think is just not tenable because all the senior people are still going to be based in London. He's going to need to talk to them on a confidential basis very, very often, if not on a daily basis. So whether he likes it or not, Andy Burnham will have to be in London for at least 4 days a week, and if not 5 days a week. So I'm sure he can go to Manchester at the weekends, but it's not viable really in terms of the access he'll need to senior people, senior military chiefs and people briefing on terrorist threats and the like.
I mean, can you imagine the Prime Minister of the country getting on the 6:56 to Manchester from Paddington, wherever the train goes from? I mean, that would cost us a fortune. Not the train fare I'm talking about, but the security, the protocols, all of that. He's got to get more realistic. It's all very well for him to want to jump around in a pair of trainers and a T-shirt, but if he's going to be Prime Minister, it's not the same.
It's not, and also, as we all know with the trains, especially potentially on that line out of, I think, Euston to Manchester, it's not very reliable.
Not very reliable.
So he can't be relying on the trains. I mean, does that bring into play that he might need to be taking helicopters and private jets, which comes with its own criticism in terms of
or a
like
limousine being driven
exactly.
up there?
And that's a long way to go because, again, you've got traffic issues. So there's a lot of rather boring transport security issues that will probably make it very hard to do, and there'll probably be a civil servant roundabout now in briefings to him saying, well, look, future Prime Minister, I'm afraid that you just won't be able to do this.
You won't be able to do it, but he's made a big deal out of it now. He said he wants number 10 North would be the nerve centre of his government. I just think it's going to end up costing us so much money in security and transport for him that it's just not. It's just not doable.
Well, it looks as though they're rowing back a little bit because the Mail quotes friends of the ex-Manchester mayor, it says, saying he plans to spend a day or two a week in his former northern fiefdom when his schedule allows. So that's
a real row back, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's not exactly the nerve centre, is it?
No.
Not really. Crikey. Kemi Badenoch, I mentioned, this is the Daily Express. Kemi Badenoch was talking earlier on today as well, just before Andy Burnham did, and said that Britain is facing a summer of no-plan chaos. We always suffer no-plan chaos in the summer when they all go on holiday where nothing happens.
We do, but it might be different this time because Andy Burnham is going to want your activity and hit the ground running, and normally, as you rightly say, around about mid-July till September, politics gets a bit quieter in this country as people tend to go on holiday, politicians and other people. But Andy Burnham's going to want to look busy, although Kemi Badenoch is saying that Mr Burnham's devolution drive, which was very much at the heart of what he was saying about devolving power to the regions, isn't going to fix the government's inability to get stuff done. So she's certainly not wowed by the idea of devolution solving all the problems. As we all know, devolution is fine, potentially. George Osborne was a big fan of it for the Conservatives, but it's not really about devolving power, it's about giving areas more money. That's what they really want.
That's what they really want. Yeah, they need more money and more staff if everything's going to be devolved, and that costs, at the end of the day, us more money.
Yes,
It's not a cheap way of governing.
Exactly, and if you're in London, the South East, one of the things you might be worried about is the shift of money and finance from London and the South East, always seen as the more prosperous part of the UK, to other less prosperous areas, and that could mean potentially higher council tax bills and higher bills for people in the South, because Andy wants to level up the country, to use a phrase so favoured by
but it's
Boris
not as if
Johnson.
everybody in the South is rich. There's a huge amount of poverty in this.
Some of the poorest areas are in inner London wards and Hackney and places like that, and of course, as I was saying, and the South West, Devon and Cornwall and places like that have some very high indices of poverty compared to just as bad as parts of the north and the Midlands.
But everybody thinks that anything down sort of north, south of the Watford Gap is
all lovely,
it's all rich,
which
is not. I promise you that. The Guardian, Burnham puts number 10 North at the heart of his bid to rewire Britain, and maternity care not fit for purpose. A powerful maternity commissioner will be appointed to push through transformation of childbirth care in England after a review concluded the system is not fit for purpose. There's been growing concerns, hasn't there, about the state of maternity in this country. I mean, the risk of death now is just so high. It's ridiculous, just having a baby.
Yeah, really shocking. And that all follows this inquiry last week into the Nottingham maternity scandal. And it's tipped that Donna Ockenden, who's the author of that inquiry, might be the person who is this new maternity
would make
commissioner,
sense, wouldn't it?
Which would make sense.
Yeah. The Independent, Burnham's North Star to light up Labour. PM in waiting sought to lift spirits in his party with a speech promising a new direction for Britain. So we'll wait and see how that plays out. Sparks fly over Andy's radical rewiring. Burnham bid to transform Britain. Bednott warns the power blackout unless the PM in waiting takes the helm before the long summer break. Well, I think that he'll have to, won't he?
Yes, but an interesting tactic by the Conservatives, just trying to put the pressure on Burnham to start announcing things a lot quicker than he wanted to announce them. I think that he wanted a longer run-in, probably didn't want to take over till September, give himself time to come up with some policies, look at the books. But there's an awful lot of pressure for him to be talking about his plans.
You don't get to choose when, do you? If you've pulled the trigger, then the bullet goes where the bullet goes. The Sun newspaper, Sun investigation, a total of 83 asylum seekers are to be moved into £250,000 homes in an estate dubbed Migrant Street. 21 smart new build houses have been earmarked for the families, but one local in Stoke Heath in Shropshire said it's bang out of order. It doesn't feel fair that these people will be living in shiny new homes free of charge, which hard-working folk could never afford. And these are the sort of images that will do no good at all.
No, and one of the problems of Labour successfully closing a lot of the migrant hotels is that those people are being moved into communities and houses of multiple
where else are they going to go? They
occupation.
weren't going to be put into the street. If they're not in a hotel, they're going to go into a house.
And this is the kind of natural outcome, really, of what happens when you close the migrant hotels.
But this will be even more unpopular. There's
Yes.
no way that this will be accepted.
Yeah, there will doubtless be somebody who can produce a sum saying that it is a cheaper way of
It'll be cheaper,
housing
yeah.
people than the huge sums that were paid to some of the private companies to put people in 2-3-star hotels.
But it's about fairness, isn't it?
Yes,
it's
exactly.
about how it looks.
Yes, and people will be saying they've just come over in a small boat and they're now living in a
£250,000 house
Yeah.
in a really nice little estate. Yeah, that's not going to go down. That's not going to go down well at all. That would be exactly what people don't want to see. I just wanted to save this really until the last couple of minutes. But Penelope Keith, Dame. Penelope Keith died at the age of 86, best known for The Good Life and To the Manor Born. Are you a fan?
Huge fan. I mean, I remember watching it with my mother and father, and they were huge fans as well. I mean, the days of people, 20, 25 million people watching these shows, everybody watched it. And
everybody watched it.
The Good
Everybody
Life
talked about
was
it.
just like the funniest thing ever. Not just her, but everybody else in it. Felicity Kendall and Paul Eddington, just great actors,
Brilliant.
great script, hugely funny, fantastic show, and way ahead of its time. Who'd have think people were...
I know.
Felicity Kendall and Richard Bryar's green campaigners digging up their gardens every week. It was fantastic telly.
It really was, and I particularly did love Margot. I was saying to our entertainment reporter earlier, is that she played this monster with a heart, and it was so subtle, that little bit of pathos, that little bit of sympathy that you felt for her. It was just, you should have disliked her because she was just mean, but actually you could see underneath that meanness to this very soft,
and a bit
sad,
of vulnerability there.
Vulnerable, that's the
and a
word.
brilliant actress, and two of the great shows, To the Man Born and The Good Life, fantastic shows, and really have stood the test of time, which not all of those shows of that era did as well. And you can watch parts of The Good Life now, and it's very, very funny. And for younger viewers, younger listeners who haven't seen it, I very much commend going online and trying to find some.
Yeah, they really is. They are great, and like you said, the Felicity Kendall, who is still working. She's in the West End at the moment, at the age of 80, still working. I mean, extraordinary. And Felicity and Penelope Keith was doing documentaries and things. So she did a lot of adverts as well.
Yes.
She did very well out of adverts, but she was just, I think, just so special an actor, but also not fame hungry, not out there trying to. She just worked.
Yeah, brilliant, and a real sad loss, and has made quite a few of the front pages, hasn't she? So
she has made a lot of the front pages. Died at the age of 86 in Surrey, where she lived for the last 50 years with her husband, who was a former police officer.
And that's exactly where you'd expect Penelope Keith to live, isn't it?
It's exactly where she should live. It's got to be in Surrey. Vincent Moss, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for coming in. Former political editor there. And that was your papers for Tuesday, the 30th of June. But stay where you are now, because coming up we're going to be talking about Andy Burnham and some of the promises that he's made. And is he the answer to all of our problems?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good morning to you. It is Petrie here with you, and this is your Talkback Hour. So this is your opportunity to get your voices heard, your opinions, your stories, your views. And it's all over to you. It's just you and me in this hour. There are no guests, there's no clutter, there's nothing else going on. It's just you and me. And what I want to talk about is Andy Burnham. He did his big speech today, a tricky one for him because he's not Prime Minister yet, but of course everybody's expecting him to set out his stall, and set out his stall he kind of did. He didn't say how anything was going to be paid for, because I don't suppose he knows yet. He didn't set out who his cabinet is going to be, because he's not Prime Minister yet. So while he did speak with enthusiasm and hope and, you know, talking about growth in every postcode in the country and how he was going to change, there was going to be a sea change, a complete change in the way that the country was going to be run, while sticking to the fiscal rules and while sticking to the manifesto. But he did say some things about council homes, and I think it's right for a Labour minister to talk about council homes. It's the one party you would hope that would talk about building more social housing, whereas what we've heard before now from Angela Rayner, who was housing minister at the time, was affordable homes. Well, that doesn't mean anything, does it? So he's talking about building 1.5 million council homes. He's talking about devolving more to the different regions of the country, and also the job of number 10 of the North. In his speech today, Andy Burnham outlined his vision for devolved powers to the regions, including the heart of government, number 10 itself.
The job of number 10 North will be to make power flow into the Midlands, into the southwest, into the east of England, and yes, into London, as I said before, as much as into the northeast, Yorkshire and the Humber, and here in the northwest. It will be about offering new opportunities to extend devolution in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland by taking power deeper down. The people of Dundee and Bangor feel just as distant from Holyrood and the Senedd as they do from Westminster. Number 10 North will be the nerve centre of a rewired Britain.
Number 10 North. How is that going to work? I mean, you heard Vincent and I talking just a moment ago, just the security alone of him travelling up and down the motorway or on the trains or whatever, the bill will be astronomical. Having to provide the same amount of security at number 10 and number 11 as is currently there, but doubling that to secure him in Wigan. So is this just wishful thinking? Is this just him going, well, I like the North, I want to be up in the North, and there should be some devolvement, but is it wishful thinking when everybody he needs to talk to is going to be in London, which is the seat of Parliament? You know, it's not because people prefer to be in London. That's just the seat of government. That's where it is. That's where it always was. Whether it'll always be there, I don't know, but it currently is. So I want to know from you, have we heard all this before? You know, breaking the red wall and all of that. Have we heard this before? Levelling up, making sure the country is fairer, making sure that money flows. We have. We have heard it all before, over decades, and it doesn't seem to have happened. Is Andy Burnham the man to make it happen? Is he going to be the one that's going to do you? Are you optimistic about what you've heard of Andy Burnham so far? He will be Prime Minister in about 3 weeks' time. Or are you just going, no, I don't believe a word of it? I do not believe a word of it. What about these Britain-only buying British contracts, British-only contracts, that we just buy British? But what if it's more expensive to buy British, which it probably will be? Is he going to really spend money on buying British, or is he going to, at the end of the day, look at the budget and go, well, actually, if I buy those syringes from China, then I can afford more in pensions? One thing that will change, I was reading this earlier on today, is the triple lock Andy Burnham is not a fan of the triple locked pension. He wants that to change. So that seems to be one of the big changes, is that pensioners will lose their triple lock. That seems to be something that he's talked about in the past. Whether, I mean, he may change his mind, may U-turn, who knows? But certainly he's going to be looking at the triple lock. So there are things that will change under a Burnham premiership. Do you trust it'll take the country in the right direction? More council homes, more a bigger state, really, because if you're going to devolve, you're going to need more people working for those devolved powers. You're going to need more money for those devolved powers. So are you confident that this is the right direction to be taking the country into? Council houses, number 10 of the North, buying British, contracts to pass social tests, so not just if they're the cheapest or the best, but also if they can provide socially as well. So I'd be interested to know what you think about this, whether you think that this is the answer, this is the direction we need to go in, and there's at least nothing else. We won't have to listen to Keir Starmer droning on and on and on and on anymore. So give me a call. Let me know what you think about this. 0344 499 1000. Those calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And text, if you will, the word talk and your message to 87222. John is in West Lothian. Good morning, John.
Very good morning to you.
How are you this morning?
I am excited and depressed.
In equal measure, or?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, what this man has said is that he wants to go for greater devolution, which I think most of us would probably accept. But does he actually understand what it is that he means? Because Scottish devolution, Welsh devolution has not worked at all. And the more he wants to, give devolution to English areas, mayorals or whatever it is he wants to call them, it means that the Barnett formula in Scotland will go up and up and up. And Scotland is an absolute disaster. And, we're talking about, to run the Scottish Parliament, we're talking about 150 odd £1 million a year.
And that's the point, isn't it? With devolution, I mean, Scotland and Wales are the biggest, and I guess Ireland to a degree, Northern Ireland to a degree. It is the cost of those parliaments. They are absolutely eye-watering. And if you devolve power, you need people to run that power. And that is where all the extra expense, even if they're smaller versions, they're not free. And they're going to be really expensive for the country.
Yeah, they're not, because we have, if you look at 129 MSPs, we've got 57 MPs, we've got 32 local authorities, and 226 local councillors, on average, throughout Scotland. To run a country that's only got 5.5 million people.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
It is absolutely scandalous. So everything goes in overheads, and it's like the civil service. The more they try to do these, the more they employ civil servants who are non-productive people. Why not cut back on all of this and put the money into businesses to support businesses that actually create money, actually create revenue for the government, and therefore we cannot go on supporting the benefit situation as we have.
No, and it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I remember, where was I working? It must have been 20 odd years ago, talking about these ridiculous jobs, that these civil service jobs or these, state-funded jobs that were coming up all the time, like local councils wanting a clown. Do you remember these jobs?
Yeah.
And it was just a way, it was a Labour government, and it was just a way of decreasing the number of people on unemployment. So they just give them all these state-supported jobs. And it was crazy. It was madness. It was all these absolutely ridiculous jobs being advertised, or big salaries. And I can see that happening again. I mean, devolution is expensive.
Yeah, it is, because, I mean, Scotland's got more quangos and and advisors to the government than almost any equivalent thing anywhere in the world, probably. And it's absolutely ludicrous because, I mean, I'm involved to a certain extent with trying to save a local health centre. And, you know, when you look at what the health situation is in Scotland, it's absolutely diabolical. They're spending more and more people on the top level and nothing in the front-line people that are actually providing the service. And this is, unfortunately, the way that government is going. And I think Andy Burnham is one of those people that actually, professes this. He is actually one of the leaders of this type of government control. Government knows best, and it's going to be absolutely disastrous for the whole country.
Yeah, especially the speed that he wants to put it through. And also, Scotland's not impressed by more devolved power. They want independence, right? That's what the SNP is after. So they're not impressed by the idea of more devolution either.
Yes, but what Scotland to the SNP may well be to a certain extent on the basis that the more money that goes to local authorities in England, the Barnett formula will increase in Scotland, which gives them more money to waste.
But the Barnett formula is already massively in favour of Scotland.
Yes, and it's. I mean, I'm a proud Scot, and a very old Scot now. But, I think it's absolutely ludicrous. We could do away with it altogether by having people in Westminster that actually is professional people, that understands local communities, that understands businesses.
But that's what our MPs are meant to be, right? We've got 640 of the blighters. They're meant to be bringing that knowledge into Westminster.
But they're not.
No.
Petrie, let's be honest. How many of them have actually had a proper job? Have actually understand what the local community is about? It's gone beyond what it was set up to be, which, I can remember years and years ago where we had prime ministers and politicians that actually understood and fought for the communities on an independent basis. And it's not like that anymore.
So if we're going to devolve these powers, then are we going to start getting rid of MPs? No. So we'll have another layer of government.
Exactly. We're going to increase costs with no benefits.
I mean, what do you think about the number 10 of the North?
Oh, it's absolutely ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. That's him playing to his local constituency in order to get re-elected in a few years' time. It's got nothing to do with running the country.
I mean, he can't. I mean, look, I do understand that politics is very London-centric, but I refer back to my earlier point. That is what local MPs are meant to do. So either they're not doing their job and they need to be fired, or we need to rethink the system entirely rather than start devolving powers, which increases costs, or moving number 10 to Manchester.
Yes, but come on, let's go back to where the Prime Minister came from before, over decades. There's been very few prime ministers have actually come from London. They've come from all over the country. And did they have to do what Burnham is actually proposing? No, they didn't. They had to go back to their constituencies, for the odd weekend or deal with their constituency problems. They didn't have to set up another office elsewhere. He's playing to his survival.
Yeah, it's performative, quite a bit of it, isn't it? Because, the idea of building 1.5 million council homes, I think, is a good idea. But how the heck is he going to pay for that? Yeah, but,
Stammer said he was going to build 1 million houses.
That was affordable homes. So it's a slight difference in tone.
Yeah, is it just terminology? Or, I understand exactly what you're saying. Yes, we do need them. They absolutely do need them. The people need social housing.
Yeah.
Because,
it'll bring rents down. It creates a secure starting point for people.
It will give people long-term stability and all the rest of it that goes with that. And but this idea that he's got that he can just do this and asking for 10 years, what he's saying is, hey, country, you will elect me for the next 2 terms, irrespective, because I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And he's not.
That is a bit arrogant, isn't it?
Well, he's totally arrogant. I just think that he's living on this idea that, this publicity that he's king of the north and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And, an awful lot of people in Manchester, and I lived in that area for, 16 years, and down in the north of England. And, he's not that well thought of. He is living on somebody else's hard work.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people have told me, the way that the Manchester mayoralty worked, is that he would just say he wanted something, other people did the work, and then he stole the glory for it. I've heard that all the councillors around Manchester have worked incredibly hard, and Andy Burnham's taken all the credit. That's what I've been told.
Yeah, and he just wants to be, it's an ego trip for him. I'm sorry, but, a lot of politicians are. They're on an ego trip. It's a personal thing. It's not about the people that actually they should be working for.
Fascinating. Always good to talk to you, John. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No, it's such a pleasure to talk to you. I love chatting to you. Thank you very much indeed. John in West Lothian. Devolution hasn't worked in Scotland. What makes us think it's going to... And it will be expensive. There's no question about that. Just in logistics alone. Going to take a quick break, but I'll be back to talk to Sheldon in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, this is Talk, and it's Petrie, and this is Talk Back, and you are doing just that. The question I'm asking you really is about Andy Burnham. Are you optimistic now that you've heard his hopeful speech? Or don't you believe a word? He's another one that's asking for 10 years in order to put everything back together. I don't think I've got 10 years patience in me, I really don't. He wants to bring in council houses. He was talking about removing the whip system. Not in any great detail, and I just don't think he's going to do that. Number 10 of the North, how's that going to work? And to buy British, even if it's more expensive. I think he'll change his mind on that when he opens the books. But it was a hopeful message, and quite a lot of what he said I absolutely support. I support the idea of any contract that is given to a company that the country is paying for, that there is a social test that they must pass. I think that any contract must go to a company that is at least paying tax of some description in this country, that will employ locally in this country, that will, you know, all of those things. I like that message. I like those messages, but they will cost us more if we do it that way. Number 10 of the North, I can't see how that's going to work. I just don't see how that's even feasible, but you know, maybe it's hope over substance at the moment. Right, we've been to Scotland. Let's go to Wales and to Swansea and Sheldon. Hello, Sheldon. I haven't spoken to you for a while.
Well, good evening, Petrie. How are you, dear?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good, my darling. Regarding Mr. Burnham's next 10 years, as you mentioned just a moment ago, you haven't got the patience. I may not have the time, but that's just me.
I may not have the time. Any of us may not have the time. But
anyway,
yeah,
let's get to the point that of Mr. Burnham being a prime minister, and let's try and explain what a prime minister is. A prime minister is the most overpaid MP in Parliament.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the power that people think he has, because there are.
Well, we've seen that with Keir Starmer, haven't we?
Oh yes, indeed we have, and many before him. And what we got to understand is there's a thing called the British establishment. And the thing that Mr. Burnham hasn't come up against yet is that very thing.
The blob, as it's known.
Indeed, the blob, yes. I think the biggest blob he's going to come up against, and I do agree with you that many of his policies are very humane, and I like them very much. Because being an old socialist of sorts, I like them.
Mm.
However, I think there's a thing called the Treasury, if I remember rightly. And there's another group of people, I think, called the Cabinet. Now, these are usually sycophants who are looking for £170,000 a year, just a minor increase in their salary, in order to tell him anything they believe until they go around the Cabinet table and then get their knives out to stab him in the back.
Yeah, well, if he doesn't move quickly, that's exactly what they'll do.
Exactly. And then we have another problem. We now have one of the most inept parliaments in living British history. And this is not just to do with the Labour Party's majority at the moment. I mean the whole of Parliament.
Yeah.
These people, majority of them, are PPE graduates, have no influence at all, have no work experience at all, have no natural instincts outside of their own £69,000 a year, and don't know how to support or help anybody in normal life whatsoever.
No, they don't seem to be interested in the grunt work, do they? The hard work.
No,
very few of them, anyway.
I don't think they're interested in the population of the country either, and that is the biggest problem that we have. Because whatever one wants to pass through Parliament, you have seen that they will stab them in the back.
Well, we saw, we did see the Keir Starmer trying to not even to cut the welfare bill, to stop the welfare bill from growing at a rate that it was growing, and he was knocked down by his backbenchers. Will Andy Burnham face the same?
These are the group of people I'm referring to, because I don't know whether they are going to change. Because Mr. Burnham's ambitions are going to cost a lot more than Mr. Starmer's.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that there's another group of people, Sheldon, that is worthy of mention, and that is the taxpayer, who's already at the highest burden of taxation in this country. And Andy Burnham is going to come back to us for more. And the triple lot will go on pensions.
No,
I guarantee that will go.
I think one of the biggest problems he will have, as the winter fuel issue was a huge problem, It was almost a Margaret Thatcher moment.
It was a real punch in the face, wasn't it?
It was, yes. I think the triple lock is going to be another Margaret Thatcher moment. And I don't think he'll get it through. Whether he wants to remain in Manchester 3 days a week and in Westminster 4 days a week is a complete farce, because I don't know where we are going to get the money to support his security 4 days a week. I have no idea what.
Well, he'd have to blooming well sit down and explain to me why it's worth him wanting to live up there, because that is going to cost millions. Because we will have to protect him as the Prime Minister on his journey up to Manchester and back again, and that is a cavalcade. That's the outriders. That's, you know, if he goes by road. If it's train, can you imagine the train security?
It would be amazing. And I think he's forgotten something, that the mother of all parliaments resides in Westminster.
Whether you like it or not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my studio is here. I can't say to talk, well, I'd rather do it near my house, please.
No, you certainly can't. I think that his ambitions and his sympathies are probably okay. I think he's probably, as they all say, a nice guy.
Yeah.
But does he still retain a degree of naivety?
Well, yeah, because he sounded a bit like a sociology student today, I thought, which was a lot of very nice ideas. And look, I completely support, and I've always said it, the only truly affordable housing is decent social housing, and that needs to be brought back. That needs to be brought. And I'm not a socialist. People think I'm I'm just a humanist. I just think that I can see that makes logical sense, right?
Of course.
But a lot of what he's talking about, like the buying British, I can see where that would be appealing, but we don't have the money. You know, if you want to buy a British-made washing machine, it'll be £100, £200 more expensive than a foreign-made one.
Well, we do have another problem. If you want to buy a British-made television, you can't get one. And if you buy a Philips one, it's made in Germany.
Yeah.
And if you buy a Sony one, it's made in the correct place, and it lasts 10 years.
Yeah, well, exactly that, because a lot of these companies have sort of moved and devolved, and they're not paying tax in this country. So I understand the social contract. I understand that, you know, if we're paying billions out of our taxpayers' money, then we should get some return on that in terms of them paying tax in this country. But that will cost us more, because they would level up the cost of whatever it is to cover that.
As far as my optimism is concerned, oh dear, I'd love to say I was loaded with it, but I have an awful sinking feeling that I still don't think this government will, even with Mr. Burnham, will last the full course.
Interesting. I mean, they can't get rid of another leader. They just can't. I mean, it's just turning into the farce of the Tories, isn't it?
Well,
I think they'll stick with Burnham until the next election, but whether he'll win it or not is entirely down to what he does between now and then.
I don't want it to happen, but I think we have a Tory habit. Yeah. I think that I got a problem with the people of this country as well, with the voters, and I will admit this. I mean, I'm one of them, so I'm no better or worse than either of them. But I think the British public have lost their complete interest in politics altogether. And I think they are impetuous, they are blameful, they're spiteful, and they want instant gratification. And if they don't get it, you're out.
I think you've really hit the nail on the head there. It's the instant gratification that we're used to in every other walk of our life. And we want to see change, and we want to see it now. And not all change is possible to do that quickly.
Of course it's not.
It really isn't. Well, just quickly, Sheldon, on devolution. We were talking there just a moment ago to John in West Lothian about devolution. He said it just doesn't work in Scotland. Has devolution worked in Wales? I mean, the Senate must cost millions as well, hundreds of millions to run.
I'm glad you brought this up, because they've expanded the amount of representatives we have now in the Senate. And we have a new leader, Rhina Bioras, and I'm sure Rhina's got all the right ideas. He may be Plaid Cymru, he may not be anything else but Plaid Cymru, and I'm Welsh, so I can't argue with that probably, because I can't see anything that happened under Labour in
No, it was a disaster, wasn't it?
But I believe that we didn't need any more representation because the cost is too high. And I believe something else has happened in Wales. I believe that because we are so limited in the amount of serious taxation we can raise, that we don't have the ability to change things in our country, Wales that is, for the better. I worry for it.
So with devolution, you think it should be the right to set your own tax?
I think
levels?
So. I think that's the only way it would work in Wales. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, because otherwise, all devolved powers just blame Westminster anyway.
All the time.
Yeah.
Because they would say...
Oh, I've not got enough money.
They'd go back to the Barnett formula all the time. And what would happen at the end of the day was that all the devolved areas would slowly decline, as we've seen in the Welsh Health Service and in areas of transport here and other areas, and especially in education, where Wales used to excel.
Yeah.
It excelled in education. And now they've got the worst record for people, little children leaving school who can't read, little children who are not numerate. It's an absolute disgrace and worry.
And yet they are being taught to speak Welsh.
Being taught to speak Welsh, I think, is their right, to be honest with you. That's another issue. But the biggest problem they don't have the quality of education outside of that they deserve.
Yeah, I certainly know that when I was living in Monmouth, the NHS, although free prescriptions, etc., there were real issues around Abergavenny Hospital and places like that. You know, really very, very scary places. Sheldon, how's Faye? Just want to ask you before you go.
She's right here. Say hello to her.
Hello. How are you?
Sweet. How are you?
Oh, bless you. Are you feeling well?
Not too well, yeah. I feel a bit tired all the time, but I can't do anything about that.
Well, I'm glad that you're sitting there and enjoying chatting to Sheldon, so you take care of yourself.
I'm still laughing. I'm still smiling.
Bless your heart. You're both absolutely adorable. Lovely to speak to you, Sheldon.
And you, my darling.
Yeah, lovely to speak to you, Faye. You take care of yourself and look after Sheldon as well. So Sheldon and Faye there in Swansea. So we've gone to Scotland and we've gone to Wales. See, we've devolved in this programme. And we'll come back in just a moment and talk to somebody in Harrow.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, you're on Talk at the moment and you're with Petrie, and this is your Talk Back hour. And we're discussing Andy Burnham because he will be Prime Minister probably by the 20th of July. So it's just 3 weeks to go. He wants a number 10 of the North. He wants us to buy British, even if it is more expensive. These are some of the things that they did in Manchester. He wants to build 1.5 million council houses. He wants to... he talked a little bit about water companies and things like that, but nothing about the global world. I suppose I'm going to say nothing about what's happening in the world today and what's happening with fuel or what's, but I suppose that's the nitty-gritty that he'll have to get into when he is Prime Minister. It would have been a little bit presumptive, if you like, if he'd started talking real policies today, maybe, or yesterday. But anyway, I'm just wondering how any of this is going to work. And Herbie joins me now from Harrow. Hello, Herbie. I haven't spoken to you for a while either.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to speak to you again.
Yes. Well, it's a lovely evening again, so you know, something to do.
Why not? Thank you.
Petrie, the EU with the Parliament in Brussels and then in Strasbourg every other week or whatever it is, costing an absolute utter fortune. And
hundreds of millions. Yeah.
What a mess it is as well. He's basing it on the EU because that's what I think he'd like to get us back into, because this is what they do. They go from Brussels to Strasbourg, from Strasbourg back to Brussels, at an normal expense to the people that are paying into the Brussels EU pot again.
That is the true gravy train, right there.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Petrie, all these promises that he wants to do or ideas he wants to do, where is the money coming from? You and me.
I was going to say, you know exactly where it's coming from.
You and me. You know, all
he is going to crucify the South.
Well, of course he is. Of course he is. But Petrie, these front benchers are all millionaires. They're not short of a few bob. And, you know, while we're struggling, they're still making more money. You know, that's why they don't want to leave the gravy train. You know, they're in the trough with super glue, so they don't come out of it. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous. He's got no idea of what's going to happen and where he's going and how he's going to do it.
I mean, the whole thing, even in the basics, right, even the basics of there being a number 10 in the North, just talking about the security bill alone, it would be astronomical, because they still have to secure number 10 Downing Street because of what it is, but also the Chancellor will be in number 11, right? So that has to be as much security as there is there. They can't cut that back just because Andy Burnham chooses not to live there. And so then he's got his place in Wigan that is going to have to be secured to the same level as Downing Street, plus his journeys to and from. You know, if it's by train,
carbon footprint.
Yeah.
Come on.
Train, driving, helicopter. I mean, if we have a socialist prime minister flying up and down in a helicopter, no, we're not going to stand for that. Right? That the cost of those journeys is just going to be, in security terms alone, astronomical.
As he spoke to Ed Miliband about all this.
Well, Ed Miliband may well be his Chancellor by then.
Yeah, well, but you still want to know what's going on with all this carbon footprint he's going to be producing. Come on, Petrie, the man has got no idea yet again. He's going to kill us all off again. You know, these people do not realise money doesn't grow on the tree. I haven't seen that magic money tree anyway.
No,
I've been looking for it for a long time. I'll keep looking for it. I've got my sack ready, but I can't find the damn thing.
Well, when you find it, let me know. Share, Herbie. But it's unbelievable, isn't it? That, I mean, look, it's all very well to throw these things out there. We'd all like a free unicorn, right? We'd all like to see more council homes. I think that would be an astonishingly brilliant thing for this country. Even not as a socialist, I think that is a good idea. And I, you know, a lot of the things that he's talking about, buying British, brilliant. But what happens when you get into procurement? And I keep using these syringes because it was just something that I read once. But, you know, you can buy a British syringe for 25 pence, or you can buy a Chinese-made syringe for 2 pence. Yeah. You know, I'm sorry, but if you look at the budget,
you're not going to do it.
You can't do it because that would be stupid. And a lot of people go, yeah, but it's buying British. But at what cost to everything else? That's just going to deplete all the money.
Well, Petrie, you know, people will always go for the cheapest, and if its quality is just as good, we've got to face facts. We've lost our industrial manufacturing a long time ago.
But he does want to bring that back. He does want to bring that back. And look, he succeeded quite well in Manchester. He did give to local firms. It did support jobs. You know, a lot of what he did in that small area of the country, he did well. You know, the people who did the work did well. But can that be translated into the whole of the country?
No. Petrie, the problem is AI's coming in.
Yeah.
We got you know, you order things to tonight and it's here tomorrow morning. You know, Amazon have taken over by supplying the world, and you know, unfortunately, the high streets are going to suffer, which they are. They're depleting, they're disappearing, and it's our fault because this is the way we want to shop. So, you know, we've got to blame ourselves for being selfish and stupid, if you like, by not supporting local issues. And at the end of the day, we're always going to pay the price. As I said regarding the farmers, when you stop farming and you need to import, they're going to say how much you're prepared to pay. If you don't pay enough, you're not going to get it. We've been held to ransom. Why don't people see this? The knock-on effect is astronomical, and we will always suffer and pay the price for it.
Well, there's a very good case in point in the water companies that are mostly owned by non-British companies, right? Yes. So we don't even own our own water. And we've seen the lack of investment in reservoirs, for example, which we're going to desperately need, probably 10 new reservoirs across the country. And they are expensive to build. But, of course, they don't want to build it because they want to give their profits to their shareholders. Or they want to give not even their profits to shareholders. They want to give all the money to shareholders.
Well, yeah, but Petrie, they filled in reservoirs before now for the housing estates. And of course, you know, short-sightedness yet again. See, we don't look at the future. We're only looking at tomorrow, not 5, 6, 10 years ahead. We're always looking at tomorrow. What will tomorrow happen? We are stupid in our own way by not looking at the future in advance enough.
But this is why Burnham and Starmer actually asked for 10 years. He said, I need 10 years to deliver what I want to deliver. And Andy Burnham's saying the same thing. I don't think he's got 10 years. I don't think we'll put up with it.
No, what, 10 years to destroy the country and us, make us all mad? I don't think so. I don't think so, Petrie. No.
More government. He's talking about more and more government.
Well, he's talking about more and more expense that we've got to pay up, in other words.
Yeah.
You know, that's the facts of life. You know, when they keep hemorrhaging money from my pockets, as you know, I don't know if you do know, I remember I hung upside down in Trafalgar Square in 2008 regarding that money hemorrhaging from my pockets. Exactly what it meant, Petrie. Yeah. Exactly what it meant.
They're going to keep coming back to us. This next budget is going to be brutal.
Well, yeah, you know, you might as well get paid on a Friday. You might as well go to the office and let them go into your pockets and take the money out of your pocket again. Because that's what it'll be, won't it? Well, you won't have much left to keep because you'll be taxed to the hilt, and we're going to be paying for mismanagement, inefficiency, because it don't come out of their back pocket. It is not their money, Petrie. This is the whole thing.
You can always spend somebody else's money a lot easier than spending your own, and that's exactly what they do. Do you think then that this is going to be a typical sort of Labour tax and spend, borrow and spend government then with Andy Burnham?
Well, it's going to be a very interesting appointment because he's come in, as you say, he's come in on the back of winning at Manchester there, and he wasn't really elected by the people. He wasn't voted by the people.
Or the party.
It's only Manchester. It's only Manchester that supported him, not the country as a whole.
Yeah.
You know, this is a, you know, it's a sham as far as I'm concerned. The whole thing, you know. If the government, because he's talking about maybe a coalition with the Greens, the Liberals, and whoever else he can get, then that means he hasn't got a future. He cannot foresee what he's going to. If he can't run the party as it should be, then he shouldn't be there fighting to be Prime Minister.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. Herbie, such a pleasure to talk to you. I've been talking to you for years now, and I absolutely love you. Thank you very much indeed. I've spoken to Herbie on many other radio stations. Right, I've got to take a quick break, but I will get back to you in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here with Talk back until the top of the hour. Couple of messages I want to read, and then we'll get back to the phones. This is from Anne in Teesside, said regional devolution will just put an extra layer of bureaucracy with more higher paid bureaucrats in place. We need fewer layers of administration, not more. I hate big government. I absolutely can't bear it. We do need fewer of them telling us what to do all the time. I'm sick and tired of it. Just leave us alone. This one from Andrew in Salisbury says, the only thing missing from Andy Burnham's speech today was a dog collar and a pulpit. The only thing I liked that he mentioned was building council houses, but I wouldn't hold my breath waiting for them. And his idea of a number 10 of the North is stupid. From Downing Street to Coronation Street is a pipe dream. Thank you, Andrew. Very good. Tristan is in Southend. Hello, Tristan. How are you?
My lovely. I'm all right, thank you. It's been a while. Hope you
It has. I have. How are you doing? All right. Southend must be lovely in this heat, though.
Oh, no. Well, it's cool tonight, and it's a welcome break from all that heat. It was too much. It was unbearable.
Were you in the sea at all?
I'm right next to it, but I wouldn't go in it.
Yeah, it's a bit. Yeah, I know Southend. Well, listen, as long as at least you get the cool breeze from the sea, though.
Absolutely,
nice.
we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Andy Burnham.
Yep.
A lot of this pledges today, it will never come true. It's a lot of hocus pocus in it. It's pipe dreams, really, and aspiration rather than policy. But the one Well, I don't know how many council houses it was, but the fact he wants to do the biggest programme since World War II.
I think he mentioned 1.5 million, because he said we'd lost 1.5 million through the Thatcher selling houses and councils not keeping up with building.
Yeah.
So I think it was about
Petrie.
1.5 million.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm so happy with that. If he even gets it off the ground and starts to work, I will vote for him for as long as he is Prime Minister. That has been the worst thing that has happened to this country ever, all that sell-off of the council housing. Here in Southend, to rent a room is about £800. That's just for a room. Yeah, you even have people sharing a room to afford somewhere to live now, and like friends rather than couples. Because local housing reference rent here for benefits is £405 a week.
What?
So I know it's madness, isn't it? So
all this nonsense about affordable housing, which is what Angela Rayner was talking about. It's never affordable. I mean, it's ridiculous. Trying to get a mortgage, all of that. No, it's got to be social housing, and it's a really good basis for people to feel secure. You know, they're talking about the birth rate dropping. Well, why would you want to have kids if you're living in private rented and you're moving around all the time, or you're not secure, or you're not? No, it's got. If we want birth rates to go up, if we want productivity to go up, the very basic thing that should be on offer is social housing.
Absolutely.
Set at a fair rent, you know, that's reasonable, so it's not costing the country anything, and then people feel secure and happy to take risks with jobs, maybe. Do you know what I mean? It's just...
That's it, yeah. With lower rates, people can afford to spend more into the economy rather than paying it to some corporation, because most of these private properties now, they're not built up by small landlords.
Yeah.
They're built up by pension funds and hedge funds and all the rest of it. So they're not like going to the small landlords like they used to. Companies just step in and buy hundreds of them.
Yeah.
And then rent them out at an extortionate rent.
And a huge profit.
Yeah, I know there was that Renters' Rights Act brought in saying that they couldn't discriminate against housing benefit tenants. But what the estate agents do in Southend now is they say you've got to have a minimum income to rent the property, which is always set way above benefit levels. They've got completely around it through the back door. They're not
silly. Of course they have.
Yeah, absolutely right. So that was worth nothing.
I mean, and also it's illegal. It's illegal not to discriminate against somebody who's older going for a job. But you know that they do it anyway. They just use a different excuse. Yeah. So it's got to be social housing. It's got to be, the stock has got to be replaced, and that will be good for the country. I mean, I'm pragmatic. I'm not socialist. I'm pragmatic, and just looking at, you know, the way. My son and his girlfriend, they're $2,000 a month. And that's before bills, that's before. It's a one-bedroom flat in a rough part of town. You know, it's before council tax, it's before everything. So they haven't got money to put back into the economy. So if they were able to be in social housing, then they could spend more. Then they could do more. Then they would be feeling comfortable enough to get married and have children. All of those things that are being stolen from young people at the moment because of the cost of living.
Yeah, I tell you what's making me really angry. I've been listening to Twitter tonight because I'm blind. I have to use it by listening to it. And all it is Tory MPs and Reform MPs and supporters saying it's going to kill us. Homes. I'm sorry, people have had aspiration for the last 35 years.
Yeah.
You still cannot afford a house, no matter how much aspiration you have.
No.
And that's in most.
And you can't work your way. You can't work your way into being able to afford a house these days. Not as a solo person.
Absolutely not.
You just. It's not all very well saying, "Oh, get a better job." It's like, well, yeah, but wages are stifled. AI is nicking all the jobs. I'm on my own. I can't afford a mortgage. I can't get cross all those barriers. That's nonsense. This whole trickle-down theory is absolute rubbish. We've got to build from the bottom up. That's the only way that we can rebuild this country. Oh, Tristan, it's lovely to talk to you. You look after yourself in this heat, won't you?
And you, take care.
All right, darling, take care. Lots of stuff. Another Tristan now. It's a Tristan night. This is Tristan in Bedford. How are you in Bedford?
Not too bad, Petrie. Not too bad.
Coping with the weather? Cooler today,
weather-
wasn't it? Oh, so
yeah,
nice.
it was last week was pretty much a nightmare, to be honest with you.
It was pretty bad, wasn't it? Although my
It was.
banana trees have had 5 babies in the last couple of weeks, so I'm building a jungle. Anyway, what do you think about what Burnham was saying today?
I didn't hear any. I mean, I know you said about he will probably come later on with policy.
Policies
but
will have to come later, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping to hear something about energy or immigration, but obviously nothing about that. But
Nothing
to be honest
about
with you, everything he said about it just made me think I just need to earn more money.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to earn more money with a Burnham government because they'll be taxing you on it. So that's the last thing you want to do.
I mean, this is the thing. I don't know. My mind just absolutely boggles. I mean, I've got an ISA, and I'm wondering, you know, is that going to be safe after what I heard last week?
Well, from Rachel Reeves is going after ISIS, isn't she again?
Yeah, and I mean, I have a private pension. I have life insurance, you know, and I don't know what they're just so cloak and dagger. I just don't know what they're going to come up with next. To be honest,
I mean,
with
that's
you.
the thing. It is that whichever way you slice this pie, it seems that we get a smaller piece of it.
I just the thing is they keep saying these things, but I keep coming to the same thing: is how are you going to pay for it?
Exactly.
Because the thing is, all money just keeps going on immigration. We keep getting taxed to the hilt for immigration, and we're getting taxed to the hilt on net zero, and they just keep doing the same thing, and we just keep paying, and then more and more people keep coming in, which means they need to be paid for, obviously, apparently. And they're not making any decision on any deportations, any decision on energy. We just carry on paying for everything. And the thing is, they're getting rid of the farmers as much as they possibly can with solar panels and wind farms and everything like that. And then we keep paying constraint payments on that. So I don't know where they're going to get any income coming in. It's just outgoing.
It does. It all looks like outgoing, doesn't it? And the only way they see that they can get any more money in is in taxing working people more, and they are crippling us because then we don't have enough money to spend. We don't support the local economies. We don't support businesses. We don't, we can't do anything. There's fewer, like I was just saying a moment ago to Tristan, the other one. The birth rate is down. How can you expect anybody to do anything if they've got no money to do anything with?
No, the thing is rent. I mean,